Because you got powerful legs. How'd you get the physique? Was it gym or how'd you get the physique?
I've always been.
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
I'm sure no one will mind.
Move him out of here, Darren.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump, you know what I'm saying?
Welcome, all of you crazy hardcore boxing fans, to episode 615 of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host, Matt DiGelinardo. You can catch us at 8 o'clock in the UK every Sunday evening, 12 Pacific time, and we will be uploaded where you find all of your favorite podcasts the next day. And you can also check us out if you want a little bit more fun. Check us out at patreon.com/boxing asylum. You'll see some different levels of patronage there, and you can jump in with all of us fine folks in the Boxing Nutters group, where we will curse about fights and fighters and complain about all sorts of things. And you might even get a random nude photo from a Scotsman. It hasn't happened to me, but I bet it's happened to someone. The odds have to kick in sooner or later. But no, we're not here to talk about nude Scotsmen today. We're here to talk about the absolute shit show that was Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn, that evolved into a pretty decent fight in the ring that was actually fairly enjoyable. Eubank winning by scores of 116-112. Seemed fair to me. Commentary wanted you to think that Benn was had a shot at it on the cards. Doesn't seem like the better bunch of boxing hardcores was agreeable with that assessment, but we are all free to judge things the way that we so choose, and we come away with our own feelings on it. Personally, I thought Eubank definitely did enough to take it. The last 3 rounds, throwing more than 100 punches around just to get those last rounds in the bank, I thought was a fairly heroic effort from the clearly weight-drained and struggling Chris Eubank Jr. Joining us today, we have Des, we have Justin, and we have Steve Wellings. Steve, why don't you give us your take on the fight? I mean, it was absolute madness. All the drama leading up to it, and including Eubank Sr. getting out of the car with Jr., et cetera, et cetera. It was a whole lot of pageantry, but at least the fight was entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, Matthew. Good evening to everybody listening at home as well. I love a good moan, as you know. Regular listeners will know. I love a good complaint, don't we all, on this show? I went into this with an open mind. I said, I'll just watch it. I'll report on it. I'll try not to judge it for anything other than what it was. And you know what? There were some plus points. I mean, I have to try and be fair and balanced, as we do. Got boxing on the map, all this type of stuff. It's in the papers for obviously wrong reasons, given all the shenanigans and stuff. People messaging me non-stop. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but as the random, well, not the random, as the regular boxing expert as you're supposed to be. People who aren't into boxing. My brother messaged me after the fight. Oh, great fight, best one I've ever seen. Probably was the only one he'd ever seen, to be honest. The usual stuff you get around these fights. There were plus points.
It's like these people haven't heard of 112 Japanese pound.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to try and bring them into the Nakatani Inoue route. They're not interested in that shit, are they? Let's be honest. They're interested in the theatre, in the stadium, the lights, everything fills up for the main event. And there was theatre, wasn't there? Eubank Senior arriving. I don't know what shot you lot saw. Some people saw him getting at the car. I saw the lift opening. He came out with Junior. And even I had a little chuckle to myself. The dads embracing in the ring took us oldies back to sort of 1990 and the Eubank, Benn, Watson era. There was obviously the bad things going on, the slap, the drugs test. The entrances I thought were good. I'm not really into that type of stuff, but I love a good entrance, back to the NAS carpets and stuff. But the fight itself, and here comes the boxing snobbery. Here comes Wellington. We knew it was coming. It was, from a technical standpoint, it was poor. I could see how a more casual audience would appreciate it, and I sometimes appreciate those kind of fights myself as well. But it was sloppy. It was slappy. There was missed shots. Benn is technically very weak, isn't he? Let's be honest. He reminded me of his dad, actually, early on, but without the power. He was flowing in, far too small. A lot of his shots were going behind the head. The timing was kind of off. He had been out for about 14 months. Obviously, he was lacking that certain something. He just wasn't able to... He wasn't really landing anything. He was throwing these things and they're ending up in clinches. Heard someone criticising the referee earlier. I thought the referee, Victor Lachlan, did okay, to be honest. Eubank was on cement legs for obvious reasons. He was completely weight drained. I said it in the chat, and I mean this as respectfully as I can possibly say it, but whatever. It reminded me of a women's fight. The sort of high-intensity frenzy. Neither of them could really punch. It hadn't got those stakes to it sometimes that women fights have. And I think you probably know what I'm talking about. They're not really big punchers. They're not landing accurately enough to think, oh, someone's about to go here. Fatigue-wise, there was a chance at times. I thought Eubank would actually go because he looked terrible. And then at the end, in the last round, I thought Benn was about to go. Didn't feel like it was on the edge of someone landing that big shot. And I'm happy to give these guys credit, as I've given AJ credit. I've slagged him off, but the fights against the likes of Klitschko, Ruiz, etc., they are exciting, really good fights. This, I just thought it was a bit sloppy. It was okay. They enjoyed themselves. Everybody got out of there. The drama, the pantomime, the theatre. Rematch? Absolutely not. I don't want to see that. It's not safe, really. We all know about Benn's past. We can't cover it up. We know what he is. We know what he's done. And Eubank looked like absolute death, cooled down in there. We've had the theatre now. Let's all move on. But I tried to be as positive as I can. I just thought it was a bit technically sloppy. But from a theatre, entertainment, Matty, theatrical point of view, I think, yeah, it kind of hit exactly what we thought it would, and a little bit more. It was more dramatic than I thought it would be.
Yeah, there was some drama, and I think just the fact that honestly it was where like the crowd did seem to be more in Benn's corner, and you kind of worry in those instances because we have seen God knows how many times where that crowd reaction seems to influence the judges for lack of a better reason that they might have scored certain fights. So I guess there was a little bit of concern I had with that. But Des, one thing I kind of disagreed with Steve on there was I do think that the ref reacted poorly at times. I do think that he was specifically targeting Eubank at times. And I think that the more egregious shots behind the head were definitely authored by Benn, but Eubank was the one who was getting scolded for it. I mean, between that and the weight stipulations, I feel like at the end of the day that a whole lot was stacked up against Eubank, and he came through it. Fair play to him.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I always try to go by, and I do this in the football as well, and say, it's easier sometimes to get on the officials' back, and we see some terrible officiating at times. I thought Lachlan generally did okay. I did think Eubank, I saw Eubank doing a few rabbit punches, but maybe the referee was just bringing that to my attention. Not so much Benn, but Benn was coming in sort of head first and ducking down, and that was where the size issue came in. But no, that's fair enough. I can understand sometimes. I try not to slate the ref too much unless they've had a massive impact. I thought he did okay, but I'll tell you what, I might not be around here later on for the ref in the Smith-McKenna fight, John Latham. I thought he was terrible. So compared to him, Victor Lachlan did okay. I would have liked to see an American, George. I thought they might put an American referee in there, actually.
Yeah.
Well, the fight was so sloppy. It was a hard to be the referee because they were just swinging.
Yes,
Like it
yes,
was,
Justin.
they were just swinging so wild. It was, and they were just so like sloppy as hell. So you're right. That was kind of a hard one to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Des, what were your thoughts on it? I know that you are generally very just displeased and negative on this fight. I mean, so feel free to go in on the ref. Sometimes I think that we ought to call this boxing officials or cunts asylum.
No, I don't have an issue with the ref on the main event of last night. I don't think Victor Loughlin stood out as having a particularly bad night. But I think there's two parallel universes coexisting in boxing, and this week's really highlighted them for me, because I met someone this morning in the gym and he said to me, "Did you watch the boxing?" I said, "Yes." He said, "How did you see it?" And I said, "It's two kids of a level. You know, it's like looking at Paul Dalglish and Geordie Cruyff. They're nothing like their dads, but it is what it is." And he looked at me heartbroken, because that was his Hagler and Hearns. That was like his Tito and Oscar. But to me, that was like, I've got one kid that's been drawn down to a weight that he just can't do anymore. He's shot, he's spent, can't hold a shot, marks up, puffs up. And I've got another kid who's not too far from white collar. And this is what we're being sold as the biggest fight in British boxing. Just saying that irritates me, if I'm honest, because I feel like I'm having my intelligence insulted. And I want to be really careful not to just be over negative and over critical, because I see where boxing is going, and it's been going this way for probably the last 15, 16 years. And it comes from the top. When network bosses said to promoters, "We're going to give you exclusive deals and we're going to play small hall shows out of the game, and with that we're going to play small hall promoters out of the game, and with that we're going to stop all the fundamental development of fighters," then what promoters have to do is they have to find a product, and the product is substandard. Kids are being fast-tracked. Now, just to pick a few off the top of my head, when you watched David Hay and Enzo Macronelli at the O2, everyone in that arena knew categorically, if I was in that ring tonight, they'd get killed. When you watch Kevin Mitchell and Carl Johansson, everyone in that arena knew I could not beat any of them two men. I couldn't beat them for a minute. When you watch Jamie Moore and Matthew Macklin fight for their British title, we all knew these are special people. And I could give you 100 examples, and the people in the chat could do the same. Yesterday, where boxing's gone now, the dial is shifted. And it's not just that fight. That whole card was mediocre on a good day. There was no talent on that card. There was nothing exceptionally good about it. There was nothing that grabs you or stands out. It was mediocre on a good day. And it's difficult for me to put a spin on this, because I've had it all week. And I said last week on the pod, I'm not looking forward to this one, because I know the spin. I know we're going to get gaslighted. I know we're going to get lied to. I know people are going to get paid and given a script. And those people that know as much more about boxing than I do are going to have a complete different opinion to me. But if you met them on the quiet, they'd laugh and joke and take exactly what they think. But this is where boxing has been taken. And I don't think it's healthy for our sport. And I don't think it serves the sport justice. But that said, I'm in a minority voice. Us here, we're like 10%, 5%. And the others, you saw them last night at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They're here for a laugh. They're here for a good time. They're here for Billy Joe Saunders knocking on Eubank's changing room door. They're here for Eubank Senior getting out of the car. They're here for a David Beckham and an Ed Sheeran lookalike. They're here to see who's ringside. Oh, look, we've got Marcus Rashford, an injured footballer, and we've got Gordon Ramsay, a celebrity chef. This must be a big deal. And this is where boxing's gone. And this is tough for me, because like a lot of guys on this panel, in this chat, people listening to these type of shows, I remember the Lennox Lewis careers and the Gary Mason careers. I remember the Curtin Langs, the Marvin Aglers, the Roberto Durans, the Ray Leonards, the Tito Trinidads, the De La Hoyas. I remember Alan Minter. I remember Lloyd Dunnigan and his achievements. It's really difficult for me to say anything positive about this type of show. And when I see the promoters and the managers and the commentators cooing and crowing over it, it's almost like, have you been teleported from another planet and this is new to you? Have none of you got like a modicum of respect for our sport and how special it used to be? And what do I make of the two kids? I thought Eubank was dead at the weight. He always had a good beard, but I don't think he's got that anymore. He can't punch. And I think Ben is one step up or two steps up from white collar. He's not a puncher either. I think all night there was arm shots. No one turned their hands over. I don't think anyone landed a solid shot. There's a lot of pushing and shoving, a lot of pulling about. And they both got marked up. Eubank because of the weight draining. But in terms of technical ability, in terms of levels, if you'd have told me them two kids are fighting 10 rounds at Goresbrook Leisure Centre for an area belt, I'd have believed it. So that's where I'm at with that fight.
No, I can dig where you're coming from, and I think we'll get a little bit deeper into the aspects of this fight and what it means to the boxing community a little bit later. But yeah, as far as just on the surface area of it, Justin, you know, you're outside of the UK, so obviously you're not surrounded as much. You know, I mean, the chat in its own way, but you're not surrounded by the media and the different stuff going on that they're doing promotionally for the fight and stuff. So you can more so just see it as the fight and maybe not, you know, take it on as deeply as some of the guys. But what were your thoughts on the way that it played out? You know, Ben kind of looked good in the early rounds. I thought he landed a few decent hooks in there and kind of had Eubank on the back foot a bit more. But ultimately, it's, you know, as Des referenced, you know, neither of these guys are tremendously great shakes, especially, you know, Ben at this stage in his career. And it just kind of seemed like just a bigger guy on equal skill level getting the better of the smaller man. Would you disagree?
No, I mean, I think Steve and Des summed this thing up as best you can. I think the only thing that really pissed me off last night, but I don't know why it pissed me off, it just got me, was, you know, Michael Montero. I think y'all heard him. He writes, I think he used to write for Ring Magazine. He does different things. Well, he reposted this tweet this guy made, and I guess he's a British guy. I don't know where he's from. And the tweet was like, Americans, you need to get your shit together. And it was showing highlights of the Eubank Ben fight. That just pissed me off. It just personally pissed me off. It's like, we have our shit together. We're not going to be paying. We're not going to have 100,000 people over here to watch two mediocre ass guys fight. And then this is some kind
true.
of.
That's true.
It's like, we have our shit together. That's what bugged me. I'm like, yeah. And this is not a knock on British boxing in itself, but it kind of is. It's like, God almighty. I mean, are people hurting that bad for entertainment that, I mean, like, I think Des made a good point how that guy was, and I'm sure that guy at his gym was upset because people were acting like this was the best effing thing they've ever seen in their entire life. And it was just two Tuesday night fight ESPN guys like on Undercard just beating the shit out of each other. There was like, Ben was, I don't know if y'all noticed, but Ben was like hopping around and bouncing and juking. The whole first few parts of the round just wouldn't stop moving. And that got on my nerves. I'm like, sit down. You've got a guy who's drained. Get him. I mean, you're sitting there just, I think me and Des talked about it last night. How many missed punches was there in this fight? I think they might have missed more. I mean, it was horrible, especially Ben. He was just swinging to swing. There was nothing like, you know, there was no setup for his punches. There was no, but we were made to believe, you know, that announcers tried and the people there, like Des said, people tweeting on everything, all this crazy shit. I'll say this, the Saudis, I'm going to say it now. I don't like their involvement in boxing. I don't think it's going to end well at all. I don't think this is going anywhere. I think it's a shit show. It's embarrassing the way everybody gets in the ring and acts like this is, and it's not going to go anywhere because this is the shit they're going to put on because
It's not going to end well for you if you're not careful, Justin.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I mean, I don't know. I think the best would be too much, but it's like it just makes you think. I don't know. It bugs me. I'm like, y'all. The fight was what it was. It was more entertaining than I mean. I didn't actually watch it with the volume on. I kind of stuck it in the corner and watched, my other random shit I usually watch. I think I was watching like The Monsters or something, that show from like the 60s. Yeah. I think I had that. I was actually watching that, and I had the fight on one of the corner screens. But that's usually the shit I watch because I didn't want to hear it when I started listening. I started reading all the comments, and people said how bad the commentary was. Well, then I usually don't. I usually watch fights on mute anyway because I just don't want to hear the random.
The commentary, you can definitely
them telling us what we should be thinking. I know what to think. We've all been watching boxing our whole lives. I know what to believe. I know what I see. You don't have to keep. And what gets me is people have already bought the pay-per-view. Why do you have to keep trying to sell the fight during the fight? They're there. If you're watching it in the 6th round, then you're in. You don't have to keep telling us what it is and what it isn't. It got annoying after a while, like I said, but it was all I could say about the fight was it was better than I thought it would end up being. I kind of thought that somebody would go down, but like Des said, neither guy really is that good of a puncher. When Ben showed what he was when he's not on the eggs, he couldn't even beat Pistol Pete Dobson. That's his level. Eubank has always been an average guy. And I think I said this to you and Des the other day because I've got them fight-worn Matt Korobov trunk. Matt Korobov was beating the shit out of Eubank. And that was
and then he had an injury in the
and that was
round.
A washed-up Korobov. Yeah. That's who Eubank is. But you've got to give him credit. I'll say it again. I'll say it 1,000 times. You might not like Eddie Hearn. You might not like the things he does. But that man can sell a fight to the average people. They eat it alive. They just choke on it. They will. I mean, it doesn't matter what he brings out there. People are going to buy it. And like I said earlier, I guess people are desperate for entertainment. They want to sing Sweet Caroline. They want to go they want to get out of the house.
They want to remember when life didn't fucking suck.
I guess. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Like I said, I've got nothing else to add. Will they rematch? Oh yeah. It might be 2 years from now. It might be 8 years from now. Their sons might come out and rematch, and they might be on the undercard. But they're going to fight again. I think Eddie Hearn said that they might even not have the rehydration clause because I think people asked that question. He said they might get rid of that. I don't know what they're going to do.
They're
going to fight again.
If there's no clear A side in first negotiations and you're balancing out a deal, it's one thing. But after somebody has a W, at that point in time, they have obviously some more leverage in the negotiation. So I could see them getting rid of that. But, honestly, let's stay with, the cynical nature of this fight. I'm sorry for the people in the chat who are stopping in to hear us maybe rant and rave about what a wonderful affair it was. Again, I thought it was a pretty entertaining fight. I enjoyed it. The last 3 rounds, watching Eubank throw those punches while absolutely drained, it was a hell of a sight. But the cynic in me says that the reason that they're pushing that Conor Benn was doing better than us, the hardcores, knew that he was, the reason that there is so much associated with after the fight and the feelings of people, of course they're going to do a rematch. They were trying to sell the rematch the second the first bell rang.
Yeah, the thing is, though, about the rematch, you wonder where they can go with it, because Eubank's obviously the man in the driving seat now, and he looked terrible. I mean, they shouldn't be draining him the way he did. He didn't even look like himself, I didn't think, when he was walking to the ring. Like, he didn't even look like Eubank.
No, there can't be a rehydration.
No, there can't be. And then you'd have to think, is he going to go up to like 162 or 163? But then the higher he goes up, then the more difficult it is for Ben. I mean, from a competitive standpoint. And then obviously he can't come down because it's more advantage to Ben. But I mean, it's just completely unsafe. I don't want to see the rematch anyway. I think Eubank should knock it on the head and Ben should probably go back to 147, or some people saying 154, but bloody hell, I can't see Ben thriving at 154.
think he was a big welterweight.
No, exactly. Well, he started off at 140, I think. But those, I mean, the likes of Boots Ennis would destroy him. The 154, it's funny, you guys like Murtazaliev, Ortiz, Big Fundora would absolutely tear over him. A couple of things I'll just say quickly before I forget. Des is right about the undercard. And I'm not going to the undercard specifically. I'm just making a wider point. There's cleverer people than me doing the matchmaking and stuff, but they always seem to like put on these fights. I know like Yard Arthur is a good fight for the likes of us, but considering the nature of the main event, there could be a better match. I mean, why don't they put like Joe Laws, Stephen McKenna 2 on before the main event or something?
They need one of those. They need one of those like local ticket sellers, right?
Yeah,
who packs in their own 2,000 people into the crowd, and it's on their own section kind of thing.
Where's Johnny Fisher right before the main event? I'm not even joking, or someone like that.
I'm picking up his dad's Chinese, Steve.
Probably.
It's a fucking full-time job.
Big sloppy heavyweights, fire them in. People love all that type of shit, don't they? Especially before a main event like that. I just think it just goes completely flat. And the matchmaking might be well intentioned in some cases from a purist point of view, but putting that sort of hardcore undercard of technicians and grinders last night under a bit of a celebrity fight, they've been better off having like a Johnny Fisher or something as the chief support. Chinny makes a good point there. I wonder if Harlem Eubank against Conor Benn, I actually thought they would consider making that fight at some point. The other point I was going to make was, before I forget about it, the ring and the slippy ring. I mean, it sounds like something in itself, doesn't it? But the amount of times this happens in boxing, can they not solve it? I mean, Mike Goodall is the angriest man. He's angrier than Frank Warren, if that's even possible. And he does his job well and all in ring craft and everything. I'm not saying it's his fault because obviously it was Slippy Logo, but you see this all the time in the biggest of fights. And even Adam Booth was there calling for chalk to be thrown down on the canvas. Fighters' safety is at risk, and the chance of someone slipping over or doing something stupid. And it's a really unnecessary issue to be having in a fight like this. No, it didn't make a jot of difference in the main event, and they managed to sort it out, fair enough. But during that Chev Clark fight, I said it in the chat, I thought it was maybe affecting his performance, or at least mentally he was going to blame that, because he was looking down at the canvas, wasn't motoring forward.
Right. He looked down every 10 seconds, he was wiping his feet.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, which one of the boys said rightly, well, it doesn't seem to be bothering Riley. And then about 30 seconds later, Riley nearly fell over and the referee called a timeout and started wiping the canvas. But that affected his strategy. So, I mean, something like that, they've got to stop that, man. It happens all the time. So anyway, I just thought that was a bit of a stupid thing. But they managed to get...
They used to use, you remember they used to use pine tar?
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
Remember, you ever know when the guy goes to the ground and they have to wipe his gloves?
Yes.
The reason they do that and the reason the rule was implemented because they used to use pine tar. So you had to wipe their gloves because the guy would go to the mat and he would have shit on his gloves and he would hit a guy in the eye.
In the eye, yeah.
Pine tar would come off.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to wipe the gloves. That's when that shit started.
I think now you mention it, I did hear that, but not specifically pine tar.
I think you said the Persian rugs would have helped.
I get the Persian rugs down from the old Bellew of the Week in Egypt. That would have been better. But yeah, there were a couple of little bugbears for me there, Matty.
No, I think those for perfectly reasonable points. I just really wonder about Ben's level about anything over welterweight. They're saying go down and fight Boots, and Boots would wreck him. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, my opinion on levels. Let me just throw this to Justin real quick, Des, because I think you might have a little bit more familiarity with the fighter. I don't know that I would pick Conor Benn against Vladimir Hernandez at 154 pounds.
At 154?
Yeah.
No, because Ben can't punch, and Hernandez, you're not going to knock him out. People don't knock him out at 154, and they can punch. So you got to figure that Ben would have to be able to outwork him and then be able to, I mean, that would be a horrible matchup for Conor Benn.
He might get away. Honestly, he might get away with that with the close decisions, but he would be puffing and running the last 3 rounds.
I hope Ben does go up, because that means he's just going to get annihilated. Can you imagine? I mean, think about the guy at the top. You say the top 10 at 154 would all beat him up. Not even the top champions. I'd say the top 10 would destroy him.
Top 15.
So that's a horrible decision. Maybe. That's a horrible decision if he goes up. I think because he just needs to stay where he's at. Because I don't think he's struggling to make 147. He didn't look like he was killing himself.
I think he rehydrated to about what he walks around at, 160 to 165 pounds.
So he needs 147. That's nothing. He needs to stay. he needs to stay there and at least try to do something with his life. I mean, I don't think. I mean, do something. Like I said, I don't know. All he could say last night when it was a press conference was, "Well, I broke his jaw." He was like, he kind of made a big deal that he might have broke Eubank's jaw, but who gives a shit? If you win the fight, break my jaw, break my eye socket, I don't care. I won.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, like, it doesn't matter what they break. I mean, I guess you're trying to make something, you know, out of nothing. But hey, break my jaw if I won the fight. I don't care.
Yeah, you know, Des, it's just, you know, what I'm thinking about, one of the things I think, you know, that offends me the most about a boxing fan is that they're splitting a $20 million purse with this fight, apparently. So, you know, I mean, taxes, paying your crew, all your expenses considered, and then another $600K from Eubank missing the weight. And, you know, while I don't think Ben gets the money, the BBFC gets the money as far as the egg incident thing, but how many guys of exceptional talent have we watched toil for years to never get a payday of which Conor Benn got? Isn't it just maddening?
Right. So a couple of things to unpack there. I genuinely ain't got a problem anyone earning a few quid. I like to see it. I'm one of them. If you somehow manage to carve out a niche for yourself, and you can maximize all your potential, like say Johnny Fisher's doing, like what Conor Benn and Eubank have been doing, I've got no problem with that. And Harlem Eubank's going to try and jump on the gravy train. I've not got a problem with that. Like I say, their dads were great, and they're just picking up some crumbs. And in fact, they're picking up more than crumbs, but they're earning off the backs of it. And perhaps that's how it should be. Well, I ain't got a problem with that. But even us on the asylum, we need to put the handbrake on there a little bit, because there's a whole gaslighting process happening here and we're falling for it. People talking about, does Conor Benn compete at top tier 154, or did he stay at 147 and fight Boots? What? Stop there. He don't beat Chris Congo. He don't beat Conor Walker. He doesn't get anywhere near Paddy Donovan. Not anywhere. Paddy Donovan beats him with one hand tied behind his back. Conor Benn's going to have a career very similar to Tommy Fury. They're going to have to find some sort of niche boxing match or a celebrity type thing. He's not going to be put in open waters. He doesn't get out of domestic boxing, not at 70, at 47 or at 54. And those at 140, that's the killer division. They're coming up. So they'll do the rematch, and that'll be the end of both of them, because Eubank's got nothing left. There's absolutely no way in the world any of these kids are going anywhere near anyone coming up from 140 who's operating at 147 or currently at 54. They're three stacked divisions, and these are very limited kids. And last night they could have been fighting for an area belt. That was the technical proficiency of both of them. We're being gaslighted here, so we shouldn't be talking about Conor Benn. Does he fight the best at 54? Does he stay and pick a tie up at 47? No chance. And judging by that,
that's why
night,
Justin and I were setting the measuring stick at Vladimir Hernandez, who was 17-7-2, I think, journeyman at the end of the day.
Conor Benn don't beat the loser of Josh Taylor and Echo Esserman. Conor Benn don't beat the winner or the loser of Crocker and Donovan. Conor Benn don't beat Conor Walker. Conor Benn don't beat Michael McKinson. Look, this sounds like I'm hitting Conor Benn over the head. I'm not. I'm hitting the lies over the head. This is the same thing that this is Tommy Fury 2.0 or whatever they call it. This is another version of that. And this type of fight they got away with, because like I say, it's Paul Dalglish and Jordi Cruyff. They're related to two brilliant dads. But enough's enough now. We can't be talking about these two kids moving on and fighting for world titles in respective weight divisions, because what we saw last night tells us, I'd never like to see Eubank fighting again. He's done.
And what a payday to retire on too. I mean, he could just be retired, buy some property, right about you're done.
They're going to do the rematch. They're going to have the rematch. That's in the contract. They can't. There's too much money on the table not for them not to have it. They're going to do the rematch.
Yep.
But I don't want us to get caught up in all this, because we're boxing people. And there's a lot of boxing people that are getting caught up with it. And there's a lot of boxing people that have been paid off, bought off, and brought in. And like I say, I'm not hitting Conor Benn over the head. I'm not hitting Chris Eubank over the head. Eubank's had a very, very bland, average career. I can't quite think of his best win without a caveat. I suppose James DeGale, but we know James DeGale was ended by Badu Jack in that epic fight. But let's give him that one then. He beat the ghost of James DeGale.
Same with Arthur Abraham, Des. They're all names, but they were gone by that point. Like.
Correct. They are. And I can't tell you what Conor Benn's best win is. Like, these... So...
Well, you really can't say what his best win is because they're all tainted in our mind, right? That's the big problem with Conor Benn is even whatever his body of work is, we can't separate the guy who was on PEDs with anything else he did, so we don't know what his best win was. The only thing that guess we have is Dobson because he was under such scrutiny, he would have gone into that fight clean.
But the point, I suppose the point I'm trying to make here is I didn't come on here to bash these two kids. I understand where they're at. We haven't bought into this. It seems like everybody else has, or outside of the the hardcore community or the boxing community, everybody else has bought into it. But we have to call it. I have to call it as I see it. It's two kids of a level. One was really weight drained and looked like a ghost, a dead man walking, and the other kid looked like he was maybe 2 steps up from a white collar kid. And that's what it is. That's what we watched last night. And this is what British boxing is now selling us. And it's been a slow decline over 15, 16, 17 years. And it started with networks and promoters saying, we're going to scrap small hall boxing and we're going to go straight to arenas. And they never had the product to put in them arenas. So they're fast tracking kids. And this is what you're left with.
So I was thinking about this, and I think it's two-pronged, and this is a bit of a sidetrack. But if you look at what's going on with the zone and also the building blocks of PBC, it was a lot of venture capital. So, just throwing money at this shit, right? And that was part of the decline too. But here's an odd one for you, and Steve, I'd like for you to consider this one. Was the real, even though it might have been a slow decline at first, with its ebbs and flows, was the real decline in British boxing when the BBC got out because Audley Harrison absolutely floundered as a professional? Because weren't they heavily invested in Audley? Like, wasn't that their last big buy when it came to boxing?
Yeah, they were, but I mean, unless I'm misremembering it, they'd been sort of flirting in and out with boxing for a while. It wasn't like they were a Sky kind of powerhouse and then Audley finished them because he took all that money for those 10 fights against awful level of opposition. I remember him fighting guys like Rishal Hercicio and Mike Middleton and all these boys. But yeah, I don't think... And yeah, they had Hobson and all, and David Hay. They had a lot of good fights, but I don't think they were like this sort of behemoth and all. They were sort of dipping in and out by that point, and then Audley just finished them off completely.
It was another outlet, like if you're talking about, like, almost 20 years ago, we have to go back, but at that point in time, they were still playing. Satanta was around, Sky, Channel 5.
Mate, can I come in there, Matt? Can I offer Steve an answer?
You both know way more than I do on this. Go.
Yeah.
No, well, look, I think Steve. I'd like to see what Steve thinks here, but I think boxing in the modern history has been its healthiest. Let's just say since the Sky Revolution, Steve. I think boxing has been at its healthiest. But when it was on Sky, and we had a mixture of small hall shows where the main event would be a British title and the chief support would be an area title, and the rest of the card was made up of young kids coming through, and their next phase was to fight for a domestic title. And every now and then you'd get a European title fight, or you'd get a version of a world title eliminator. And then once every 3 months, you get a big event. You get something in an arena like at the Docklands Arena, or at the at the MEN or something along them lines. So what we had was a staple of small hall, go to an arena, a bit more small hall, then we go to an arena. Boxing can't compete with Formula One racing. It can't compete with Grand Slam tennis. It can't compete with Premier League football. And I think that's what it tried to do. It tried to say, look, we're going to become the sport of big arenas, strobe lighting, loads of music, costumes, entrances. But the product isn't there. Our talent pool's not big enough for that. And boxing doesn't start at arenas. It starts at the small hall. It starts at grassroots. And they've cut the legs out of boxing. So it's not just this fight, by the way. We've seen the standards in boxing drop dramatically over the last 5-6 years. Think back to, has Eddie ever made a 1v2 in any division? Have any of our kids, as good as they are, how many of them have ever beaten the best in the division and been number one? There was a time when Frampton did it, and there was a time when Tyson Fury did it, and there was a time when Josh Taylor did it.
Ennis versus Stanionis was 1 versus 2. So
British fighters, though, he's talking about, isn't he?
I'm talking to British guys, Matty. So I'm not counting the rest of the world. I'm counting our little microcosm of the sport, where it's been allowed to sort of decline and regenerate into what we've got now. And this is not a new argument from us. We've been saying for a long time, why don't we get our best light middles and our best light heavies? Why don't we get our best welters competing against each other and then sending them out to what's in America? But we don't. And we seem to marinate, and then what we're left with is a product that's overcooked. And this isn't just a new problem. This has been around a long time. But to go back to the question I asked Steve, in closing, the healthiest boxing we had since the Sky Revolution was when it had 3 or 4 promoters working on the one channel, and we had shows every week from all over the country, and every 3 months we'd have a big event.
Yeah, I remember those times as well. I wonder whether we've maybe been a little bit spoilt, and the purple patch it really flourished and everything hit the crest of a wave and then it disappeared. And our friend Eddie Hearn was responsible for that. And now he's sort of hitting the back end of it as well. I was at the press conference when Eddie first came on the scene, not the very first one, but early on when he did Harrison Hay, and he was starting to become a face. Before that, it was Barry. Well, not so much Barry, actually. It was Frank Maloney, Frank Warren, etc. And Eddie came on. He was like a breath of fresh air, wasn't he? He picked up Joshua. That was a boon as well. Kugan Cassius came along at the same time. He was promoting Eddie, videoing him all the time, and everything started building at that time. And I was at the press conference, what I was trying to say, when he said, oh, no more shit fights in leisure centres. He actually said that. Basically, we're not going, those old days of Sky, the days you're referring to are over.
He did say that, yeah.
We're going into I remember writing a piece with it in the headline. I probably won't be able to find it now, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. He wanted to come out of that. He wanted arenas. He wanted big venues. He wanted stadiums, all very ambitious. And to a certain degree, like I say, with the likes of Joshua, he achieved that. I'm not saying he promoted the likes of Groves and DeGale, that actual fight, but guys like that were coming through. Kell Brook was on the scene. Amir Khan, Eddie Hearn was absolutely flourishing. There was a lot of. He picked up Carl Froch. Mick Hennessy did the groundwork with Froch, but Eddie was the hype man. He was the promoter. He promised us great things, and to a certain degree, he delivered. And then whenever DAZN come on the scene, the British scene was starting to wane down a little bit. The talent pool was thinning. Now the talent pool is really thin. Not only do we look and say who could headline a stadium, i.e. the likes of Eubank and Benn are having to do it, but we were looking at the turn of the year at the best British and Irish prospects coming through. And I tell you what, it's pretty thin on the ground, like, to be honest with you. I just think the boon is over. And Eddie is just recalibrating and looking at other things now. We've hit the crest of the wave. We're out to leisure centres, and we might just have to end up back in them at some point. And that's just the way. I think maybe we were just reverting to the mean.
Well, I guess we'll see where it goes, and if it reverts back to that. What I fear on this, and I think this is kind of the last point we'll kind of run over on this. And from my own experience, canceling my DAZN subscription because of their demands of pay-per-views, including this one for this side of the pond. You consider, all these fights are like, yeah, get the best against the best. And when they finally even scrape the idea of that, it ends up on pay-per-view. Anything with even the slightest bit of public intrigue ends up on pay-per-view now. And it's the whole promise of DAZN at the beginning was, subscription, no pay-per-views, get all these big boxing events. And it's just devolved away from that into just another unaffordable clusterfuck of boxing. And unfortunately, I don't think that they can keep up with this like this, because my fear with this event is that anything they might have gained on short-term pay-per-views and things of that nature, I don't think I'm alone in getting fed up with it and pulling the plug. I know members of our group who are as hardcore as they get, like, yeah, that we can't do this anymore. This is just ridiculous. And I wonder if they're not going, if this in its own way, or this kind of series of pay-per-views and this, that, and the other, if this isn't really the straw that breaks the camel's back with boxing, because this is ridiculous. I mean, you finally do have this figure, for better or worse, in Turkey Al-Sheikh, who wants to make competitive fights, but now we're stuck in the pay-per-view model. And I have no problem spending $24.95 to watch Beterbiev and Bivol. It's 1 versus 2. Fantastic fight. We've been clamoring for that for a long time. I paid for it twice. I would do it a third time. Not a problem. This, I don't know what they're getting at anymore. And it's just getting to be too much to handle at the end of the day. And I just think that we're looking at a point where boxing may really start to fall off, because I don't know that people are going to keep ponying up these dollars to support it. I know untold numbers of the people who listen to our show are members of Team Stream in its various forms, and in its own way, I guess that contributes to this. But people guess they're getting forced into that corner, and I don't know where it's going to go from here, but I just feel like this is going to be a really bad turning point for DAZN, and I don't know if anyone else feels that way.
Well, just to close this loop, sorry, Matty, I know I'm probably taking us off. I found it here. So 17th of March, 2012. That's how old, flip me, I've been going about 10 years by that point. That's how old I am. Hearn discusses boxing's health. So here we are. Hearn openly discussed the nature of the beast when it comes to negotiating big fights in the existing climate. This was 13 years ago, and revealed the many factors that are shaping boxing's present and future health. Boxing is not rating well in the UK, and that's the bottom line, Eddie stated. Any aspiring viewer or fight fan is turning on and seeing half-full leisure centres and shit fights, which appeals to nobody. So there you go.
Yeah. And then you have a bunch of people who get caught up in the madness of these kind of fights, and everything else goes by the wayside, unfortunately, because they're able to make their money off of this somehow, some way. And I don't know what they made on this state side. I have not a clue. But I think they're going to lose more subscribers than they got in pay-per-views at the end.
I don't think this would have resonated stateside, would it, apart from you lot?
Well, yeah, and I think other than the people who are just financially doing incredibly well, which is a number that's growing smaller by the day over here, I think a lot of people in their heads process that, like, they're like, oh, cool, we'll watch Benn versus Eubank, and then the next week we got the Times Square and Canelo. And then it's like, oh, there are 3 pay-per-views. My DAZN subscription in this, that's $145.
Well, this is from the same DAZN that said no pay-per-view. They even did the little videos at the beginning, didn't they? Smashing up the pay-per-view with all the heads and the hammers and stuff. But I think the dads maybe with the hardcore American fan, the dads remember them sort of being loosely associated with James Toney. But flip me, you could count on one hand how many people would probably have paid in America, I'd say, to watch it.
I would say that the number it's got to be less than 5,000. I don't think it's less than 1,000, but I'd say
less than 5. I'd say.
Des?
No, I just think that British boxing has taken itself down this corridor, and it's a case of whether it's over pitching Isaac Chamberlain and Lawrence Okoli at the O2 and having a dud on their hands, whether it's playing Kell Brook and Amir Khan 5 years too late, whether it's bringing over Savannah Marshall and her absolutely Clarissa Shields and standing Savannah Marshall on her head, or whether it's just this, the stream of fights we seem to be getting now, that if AJ fights 6 times, 4 of them are gimmies, and same for Tyson Fury, and it's become a running joke in boxing now. We'll just wheel Derek Chisora out. British boxing. And it starts from the network bosses, the people in charge of boxing, people like Ed Robinson at Sky, people like Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. I understand you're all being paid, but there should be a duty of care. There should be a responsibility where you take this sport. I remember one of the first times I ever spoke to Steve Wellings was in the last days of Setanta. And we were talking across social media. And then we made the same comparison at Box Nation. We made the same comparison at Sky. Well, I feel now that the way boxing is going now, with the inactivity, the overinflation, the paying fighters ridiculous sums of money, If I see these type of cards that I saw last night, and we've seen them countless times over the last 10 years, where the product is, the talent is so rarefied. I think, you know what, I'm not quite sure how long. I'm not saying boxing is a sport, because in some parts of the world it's really strong. We see that every month, and the boxing asylum talks about fighters that will never see the light of day in this country. But I think boxing in this country, I think it's really got to be careful it don't find itself on its last legs, because last night wasn't a one-off. We've been talking about it for 10 years now.
Well, the next thing coming, the next big thing coming for you guys that is going to be either late this year, early next year, it's going to be Joshua versus Fury. Give Tyson a little time away from the ring, is quote unquote retired, to do what he has to do to physically rebuild himself. Take that comment where you must in your mind, and they'll put that in front of us again.
Well,
probably about another 5 years too late.
And that will stop traffic, and it will sell 60, 70,000 at wherever it sells. But everyone here knows that's 3 or 4 years too late.
Yep, that is the case. But yeah,
They're
anyway,
all slightly off, aren't they? Khan Brook, Joshua Fury, Eubank Ben. I don't know whether that was ever on. Let alone slightly off. I'm trying to think. They're just all past their sell-by date a bit, aren't they?
Yeah.
We marinate for too long, Steve, and what we're left with is an overcooked product. We've seen it so many times. Or we fast-track kids, and they're just not good enough. Like, point in case, Chamberlain and Coley. And we watched their careers just sort of go up. Well, in Chamberlain's case, go off a cliff, and with a Coley just stagnate. And we seem to think, well, where's the Ben Whittaker going? And let's talk about Fraser Clark. I mean, do we know how to develop fighters in this country now? So there's been, I'm not quite sure if we've got the right people involved in boxing, or maybe the right people in boxing are dinosaurs and they've been played out of it. And we've got a load of new heads in boxing that don't quite know how to develop a fighter, which in turn progresses our sport.
Absolutely. And but yeah, we're going to take this into the undercard here. And it kind of looked all right on paper. This one looked like it was going to be less than competitive, but turned out to be fairly competitive. Honestly, I don't know. I found a way to watch the main event and fucked off the rest. But Anthony Yard ended up going to decision over Lyndon Arthur. He is 2-1 over the course of their 3 now. It seemed like from the chat, though, that Arthur was getting the better of it early on. Justin, you usually were catching these. What did you see, and when did the tide start to turn?
Like I said, that's another fight I had in the corner. This whole undercard sucked, but Arthur, I think what you talking about on the chat was because he had a good jab going, and Yard really wasn't doing anything. But Yard started putting a lot of pressure on him. I think Yard won the fight just because Arthur got off of his jab and kind of slowed down his pace, which I may because he was just tired. But I think Yard just won because probably the last 6 rounds he's the guy that looked like he was doing more. And sometimes with the judges, they don't really catch the little shots here and there. They're just going to go with the guy who's bringing the fight. And God, we don't need to see another one of those. I mean, I don't even, like you said, why was this even the co-main event? This fight went down exactly what we all thought it was going to be. It was, I don't know. This was a horrible undercard. We can get to the rest of them. And I don't know if y'all want to dwell on Arthur and Yard for too long. I mean, I don't know where they're going to go. Yard he's not going to do anything. Arthur, well, he's not going to go. They're kind of stuck. That's why they had to fight 3 times, because they really don't have a lot of places to go. Yard is not going to beat any of the top guys. So he's just kind of sitting there in kind of a holding pattern. I don't know where they go with him.
I think all signs point to Yard versus Boazzi.
You might as well. That's probably a good fight because Boazzi showed. I mean, he should have beat Cal. You thought he would have beat Callum Smith, but Boazzi showed, though, that he's at least tough. I don't think Boazzi's as skilled as people thought he was. I don't think Boazzi's just as good as they built him up. Because, when he first come out, there's a lot of people who had hopes for Boazzi to really be something. But then you kind of notice, why isn't he fighting anybody? And you kind of saw why. He's there, but he's not there. You know what I'm saying? He's like one of those guys that's just right below the top level, and then that's just, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But
He's
yeah,
tough,
the
no
undercard,
punch with you, and that's
yeah,
done him well at times.
yeah. I mean, he's going to be in. I mean, if he fights like the way he did versus Smith, that him and Yard would actually be a good fight though, because they're both pretty much the exact same level. I don't think there's a huge difference. I think Buatsi is a little bit more skilled, but I don't think Buatsi's going to use that really. I think there's just going to be two guys really going at each other. So actually, probably that would be a good co-main event fight. I imagine. On the
I'd
card.
watch it. I'd absolutely
I mean, like,
watch it.
if they're going to do Fury versus, I mean, that would be a good undercard fight because it's going to be talented. But like I said, if Steve and Dez want to get into the Arthur, I'm sure Steve wants to talk a lot about Arthur and Yard if he wants to get into that. But I think the only fight on the undercard that I actually thought was decent just because I thought he looked okay was the McKenna fight. I think he surprised a lot of people because he just completely dominated Liam Smith. I don't think a lot of people thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, funny enough, I caught a few pieces of that fight, and Smith just seemed like it's like McKenna looked good, but it's tough to judge off of that Smith because as far as I can tell, Beefy just he doesn't have it anymore. A weight too high, a few years too many, and that's the way it went. I don't know. Steve, give me your thoughts on those two fights, McKenna and Eubank, and Yard and Arthur.
Yeah, I thought McKenna was excellent. Obviously, you can only beat what's put in front of you, and he did that exactly. This kid's talented. We kind of knew that. He's a bit more reserved than his brother. They said before that he's all guns blazing. He's going to come out firing, but I thought he boxed off the back foot lovely.
Oh, is that Tyrone's brother?
Stephen McKenna, isn't he? The guy who fought Laws.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I know Tyrone. Yeah, well, he's got Tyrone's toughness anyway.
I don't fucking know. I don't know.
All these McKennas. Shout out to Chris McKenna.
No.
Okay,
yeah, I'd say it's like it's Smith over there, but there's actually Smiths over there, so that doesn't work either.
No, he must have had something about him at some point because he was unbeaten, which obviously doesn't mean a lot these days, but he had been signed with Oscar. He'd been training with Freddie Roach. I know Freddie Roach will pretty much take anybody for a period of time, and how much actual training they're doing with Freddie is, we just don't know. But he had a bit about him, basically. Let's say that. Liam Smith, another one, been out the ring far too long. He's old. He's up in weight. I thought he would break down McKenna late on, the sort of high hands, get to the body and just work him down. But he didn't. McKenna set a pace early on, got the jab going, hit him lovely to the body and just beat him up. And at the end, I thought that Smith was the one who's going to get stopped. There was the cut as well. I think the referee was very fussy, trying to keep things even. But yeah, McKenna looks good. I wouldn't mind seeing him again. As for Yard against Arthur, Yard's had a strange career, fighting over match guys, moving up to world level, giving a good account of himself before ultimately getting beaten. Arthur was bossing things when he was on the jab. Even when he was throwing the throwaway right hand, he wasn't necessarily, when he threw the actual right hand, sometimes he was guilty of overreaching and Yard would step back and counter him. I thought when he threw the double jab and then threw that throwaway right hand, Yard was kind of twitching and Arthur was able to reset and throw the jab again. And while he was doing that, he was bossing the fight. But I don't know, he just seemed to tire out really down the stretch. And Pat Barrett was getting very frustrated with him in the corner, and staying on the ropes didn't seem to be a tactic. Barrett was saying, what are you doing? Using far more industrial language than that. What are you doing lying on the ropes? But Arthur just couldn't stand and throw the jab anymore in centre ring. He just hadn't got the legs for it. So Yard pushed him against the ropes. I don't think either of them come out with any major amount of credit, as in didn't really push them forward. Obviously, he does push forward Yard, getting the win and all, and he'll get himself another payday. But again, I don't know, he flattered to deceive a little bit. He's had the promotional issues. He'll move onwards and upwards. Other than that, who else was on this? Oh yeah, I picked Clark to beat Vidal Riley. I thought that Clark would be a bit too seasoned, a bit too battle tested. He would motor forward, work Riley to the body, send him to a place that he didn't want to be. But he didn't. He stood off, caught between two styles. A new trainer, just hadn't got the memo. Riley just outboxed him. And I thought, as good as what Riley was, Clark just played into his hands. The canvas wasn't helping. But Clark was very reticent, very reluctant, and fair play to Riley. He spoke very well afterwards, him and his dad. Obviously, connoisseurs of the sport, watched British title fights, wanted to win the belt, knew about the history, not just a YouTuber. Liked what I saw from him onwards and upwards. And opening the show, Billum Smith against Glanton.
Yeah, that was
Interesting.
a bummer for me. Like the odds
Yeah.
moved so much in Glanton's favor. Like I thought that it was one of the ones where I actually kind of saw through it, but CBS found I don't know.
CBS impressed me, and he's the more battle-tested, more seasoned guy. Maybe I overrated Glanton in the end. I like Glanton. He is what he is. He's a small, stocky guy, can punch hard, said a few unsavoury things at the press conference, well, from what we could understand of what he was saying. And I thought later on in this fight, it's going to become very interesting because he is physical, he can punch, and we've seen him come against the likes of Egorov, who's actually fighting right now in Russia, came back, stopped him in the 11th round against Apoche. It really put it on him, and it was a great fight. We knew he could go into the trenches, as we did Billam Smith. But I thought that the Ramirez loss was just one fight too many for Billam Smith, and I thought he's going to fall off the cliff now, which he might be sliding gently off that cliff. But he showed his championship experience, used the jab well, hit Glanton hard to the body early on, didn't get involved in a war as much as he needed to. And Shane McGuigan just coached him through the 12 rounds. And in the end, it wasn't a comfortable 12 rounds. It never is with Billam Smith. But I really thought that Glanton would be putting it on him late and we would see what Billam Smith had left. But as it turned out, I thought it was as comfortable as it could be for him. And he looked pretty good. And he'll get another shot at world level, and fair play to him. And at the end, they're all friends again, which was, I think in this case was nice to see, because Glanton really did say some unsavoury things in the press conference, even for boxing standards. But all in all, only 5 fights. One thing I will say about these Saudi shows, at least they keep things ticking over. They seem to have done away with all the razzmatazz, and I know it wasn't in Saudi, so we weren't finishing at 1 o'clock in the morning, but it just felt like it moved nice and quickly. And I kind of like that, because these shows that were lasting for 7, 8, 9 hours, for people of my age and position, Matty, I just can't cope with it anymore. So I like the speedy 5-fight shows, let's put it that way. And with that, I'm going to have to hook it. Sorry, Justin, what did you say?
I was going to say, you wouldn't have liked the Krasnicki fight card last night because every fighter got to come out to a cover band. So you had Pink Floyd, then you had a Michael Jackson guy come out.
Oh, my. Seriously.
Cover band. So, yeah, you wouldn't have enjoyed it. That was it started at 12 to end at 7.
Nah, it's too much for me these days, man. Can't cope with that anymore. But listen, it's been good to be on with you, boys. Thanks very much for having me, as always, and keep up the great work. And everyone, hit the like, get the likes up, for Christ's sake. These boys are doing this every week. And thanks, Matty. Thanks, Deds. I'll catch you again soon, hopefully.
Later.
Hey, thanks, Steve.
Cheers, mate. Cheers, Steve.
Des, why don't you go ahead and round out the undercard discussion there? What did you think about the show before the shit show?
I've probably been a bit unkind on Aaron McKenna in saying that, I didn't see nothing on the undercard that impressed me. But I'm not quite sure how good Aaron McKenna is or how bad Liam Smith was. So perhaps Aaron McKenna, you've stood Liam Smith on his head. Well, go and beat Tyler Denny. Go and beat Kieran Conway. Go and beat Brad Pauls. Go and fight Denzel Bentley. Go and let's measure you now against the crop of British middleweights, because I've not fancied Liam Smith for a long time. I'll tell you why. He's been overly inactive. He made the weight wrong in his last one against Eubank. And before that, I think there were 2 kids, but one was suffering with a weight cut more than the other. And I think Liam Smith hung around at middleweight for far too long. And he was an old man picking up a few quid last night. So if that's harsh on Aaron McKenna, I'm sorry, because I thought Aaron and his trainer, Fergal, done everything right last night. And Aaron was punch perfect. But it wasn't hard to be punch perfect against a very pedestrian, very static, straight-lined Smith who couldn't let his hands go. So the jury's still out on McKenna for me. But we've got plenty of middleweights at domestic level that are there or thereabouts, that sort of, pitch. Let's see what you like against Brad Pauls or Tyler Denny or Denzel Bentley or Kieran Conway or any of that little group, because then we'll know a bit more about McKenna. So the jury's still out for me on that. With regards Smith, you're done. You're cooked at the weight, and you've been hanging around at the wrong weight for the last 3 years, and you've been inactive, and there's been one excuse after another. You're done. We don't want to see Liam Smith in the ring no more. I could say the same about Anthony Yard and Lyndon Arthur. I've never been overly impressed with Anthony Yard. I've always thought he was a very basic, average kid, and you couldn't tell me his best win other than Lyndon Arthur, which probably tells you a lot. And I said the exact same thing about Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon Arthur, you couldn't tell me his best win. Between them, these two have been around for nearly 30 years between them. They've probably got about 40 to 50 fights between them. I'm not convinced about Yard or Arthur. Last night, Arthur lost that fight because he wasn't fit. And that says it all. It's all right having tattoos and being 6 foot plus and having loads of muscles. Go and do your running, go and do your hills, go and do your sprints. Because had he done all that, had he turned up fit, because let's be honest, it wasn't a fight at a great pace. Had he turned up fit, in shape, come round 8 or 9, he would have been able to stay on his toes and keep distance. As it was, he couldn't do it. So what he did, they made this agreement between themselves, this unspoken agreement. If you sit on my chest, I'll sit on your chest, and I'll put my chin over your left shoulder, and you put your chin on my left shoulder, and we'll just go at it like it's some sort of exhibition bout, and we'll just see what the judges make of it. And that's what happened. I thought Yard was a lot more proactive, but I thought he was still getting caught on the inside work, but it looked better than what Lyndon was doing. So no complaints there at all. However, I'm not overly keen on seeing any of them in a boxing ring again. They've had plenty of time. They've had over a decade apiece. They've had loads of fights, loads of opportunities, and somehow they've seemed to navigate around all their domestic opponents, and they've gone from one extreme to another, whether they're fighting the Dex Spellmans or the Bivels or the Baturbievs, and it's just one extreme to the other for me. I've had enough of the pair of them, and last night confirmed it. The other one was Riley and Clark. No complaints at all. 2 kids that should be fighting for an English title, upgraded to a British title. Clark's feet ain't good enough. He ain't got quick enough feet. So all you got to do with Clark, if you've got size and mobility, is just keep him at arm's length. He can't punch out, not if you keep distance, and he's just not quick enough. So good win for Vidal. Let's see him kick on now. We've got a reasonably interesting group at light heavy, whether it's Hutchinson or Spider or Aziz. There's plenty of guys that he could fight, and he seems to be a kid that's got plenty of ambition, and him and his dad seem to understand the principle of British boxing, that if you come through them hard fights, if you come through them camps, sometimes you might lose a few, but by the time you get there at the other end, you'll be a better fighter for it. A la Crawford Ashley or Clinton Woods, a la Dennis Andrews, them type of kids that go on and fight and win world titles, or fight great fighters for world titles. So hopefully Vidal's got a nice career in front of him, but he done nothing wrong last night. He boxed well. And the other two, I know what you're saying about Glanton, but Glanton's too similar to Billam Smith. And the only time you're going to see Billam Smith get beat at a moment is if someone can do what Zerdo did, which is stand him on his head. And Zerdo's a really good fighter with a brilliant team. So
yeah, he's got really loose hands. He just kind of lets him go in combination, really fluid. That's the one thing that you have to give him. Where he got caught up against Bivol, obviously, who is a masterclass, is that Ramirez's hands are far more fluid than his feet, and Bivol exploited that to the T.
I just felt that if you're going to beat Billam Smith now, you can't out Billam Smith. You're gonna have to have a bit more about you, because Riakporhe couldn't do it, and Akoli couldn't do it, and the Russian kid, I can never pronounce his name, Murtazaliev, he couldn't do it. Is it Murtazaliev, the kid that he fought before that lot? But either way, you can't act Billam Smith. And if you're gonna beat Billam Smith,
oh, you're talking about Masternak. I was
Masternak, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. That was a surprise.
Yeah.
I was like thinking, wait, no, he's 154-pound fighter. What the fuck am I talking
about? And Masternak's had more success than all of them, because he really did get to Billam Smith, but Billam Smith finds a way out of that one. So you've got to do what Zerdo did with Billam Smith. You've got to stand him on his edge. You've got to have distance, and you've got to just punch the fight out of Billam Smith at range. You can't do it close, and that's what Glanton's mistake was. The only time you might catch Billam Smith out on them terms is if the well's empty, and I don't think the well's empty. I don't think Zerdo gave him that sort of hiding. I think William Smith will come again, and there's good fights around the corner for him.
You recovered
but
from
yeah,
that
was the
fight
undercard.
well. I think that was some of the lean that the gamblers had. Des was after you get pasted the way he did it against Ramirez, and you're in your 30s. You don't know what that took out of a guy.
That's what
Well,
me and you were thinking.
I had a conversation.
Sorry, put it on him. I was like, that's what we all thought. Like Glanton would have, but Glanton just doesn't punch hard enough. I guess in the end, really, because
he's not big enough. He's not big enough.
Yeah, it's not, and he's kind of sloppy. And you're like you said, to get Smith, you've got to be a little bit more cleaner with it than just because he eventually just saw those coming. The shots that Glanton was throwing, he eventually just timed those because they were so sloppy.
And I had the conversation with Dominic on Friday. I wasn't convinced William Smith's well was empty. I think he still had a lot in him. I don't think the Zerdo fight emptied the well. It was a sort of fight you can take, it's sort of loss you can take if you're William Smith. But you have to recover. You have to have a bit of time off. And then Glanton was pretty much it was egg and chips. It was straight up and down. Nothing to worry about. This is pretty much what William Smith does. And Glanton was a small version of William Smith who doesn't really punch hard enough. So no, I was kind of confident William Smith could see that one out. It's a good name to have on his resume. It was a good fight for William Smith to have. But that was the undercard. No frills, no spills, nothing fancy. And if I was a bit disparaging towards McKenna, I didn't mean to be, but I just don't know if it was a good McKenna or a really poor Liam Smith. Weight drained for the last 3 years.
You have no clue of what the measuring stick in the ring was at this point.
No, correct. But we will know, Matty, if he jumps in at domestic level and fights the guys we can measure him against.
No, I would like to see him against Tyler Denny. Tyler can't punch hardly a lick, but he'll give you an honest night's work, and he'll be able to do that come forward stuff that Liam was trying to do, but he just couldn't get his head off the line.
Yeah.
So. But anyways, joining us as well, we got Rappin' Rob Kelly. Rob, before we move on to the thinking of the super chat and all that goes with it, why don't you give us your rundown of the card? We actually just wrapped up the undercard, so feel free to, you can run down the whole thing.
Can I just come in there quickly, Rob? Sorry, mate.
Yeah, go ahead. Of course.
I want to give you a right good introduction. Last night during the main event, Rob texts me, he goes, "This is a bit shit, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah, a little bit." And he said, "And the one before wasn't very good either." I said, "No, this is a little bit flat." And we had a discussion about it. And Rob sent me a couple of voice notes, and I wish I could play them on this pod because he nailed not only the two fighters, but he nailed the whole tone of this show and the last 3 years leading up to this fight last night. So, Rob, I'm waiting for you to come on. Rob, the floor is yours. Rant away, Rob. Rant away.
Wise old sage.
Well, look, I think that's cheers for the setup. I suppose exactly. I suppose I was probably just saying to you probably what I was going to say on here anyway. But this fucking fight, man, like I remember going nuclear when Conor Benn popped. Right, I remember the Sunday night going absolutely ballistic. Because you care about the sport, you fucking grow up with it, you care about the reputation of the sport. And I remember when Michael Watson had his tragic injury, and I remember BBC News basically trying to cancel boxing and ban boxing at that time. Des surely remember that as well. Like they wanted to ban boxing after Watson got injured. And the spooky element of that was hanging over the shadows that were hanging over the fight with the McClellan brain injury, the Nick Blackwell injury, the Watson situation, and then you're going to emaciate a guy and bring him down to 157 and make this fight, and it was just dangerous. And nobody was talking about the danger for Conor Benn, as Eddie said, but then he lost all possible sympathy and empathy that you could ever have for him by popping hot, and not only popping hot, doubling down on it, tearing up his license, going on a fucking 2-year PR tour, crying on Pierce Morgan, pretending that he's going to fucking take his own life. His dad's backing him to the hilt. And it just made us hate this fight. Hate the fucking fight. Hate it. Hate everything about Ben Shalom and Eddie. I think it was Cali Sauerland who was involved the first time. It wasn't Ben Shalom. Eddie Hearn and the way they fucking spun it. And they were going to have the fucking fight anyway, right? That's basically why I was going mad, because Conor Benn popped hot and they were going to have the fight anyway. And they didn't give a shit about the health of the fighters as long as everybody was going to get paid. And no matter what way they fucking slice and dice it and coming out and try and tell us that we don't know the ins and outs of it and blah, blah, blah. That's what happened. They tried to make the fight happen anyway because there was so much fucking money at stake. And as well as that, this was before the involvement of Turkey Al-Sheikh in boxing. And Conor Benn was Eddie's backup plan because AJ had one foot out the door and he's the only thing semi-resembling a star that he had left. Right. So because of all the fucking crooked antics in boxing, we were going to have this fight. And because of all that, the knock-on effect is us hardcore fans, we hated it even more. These are two fellas that never won a world title properly, never look like they're going to win a world title. They're at a level and they're in the position that they're in due to the surnames that they have and what their dads did. But then you get drawn in, and as much as I'm cynical, I'm watching it, and it was a bum fight for fucking 10 rounds, and there was no quality. Eubank was pushing out the shots. He was obviously, I think Eubank died at the weight when he made 157 for that fight the night before it called off, and he's never looked the same since. I think that was evident in both of the Smith fights, and it was definitely evident last night. Eubank was pushing the shots. There was nothing on them. Ben was explosive without really doing much, and it was like a club fight. It was a poor fight up until round 11, and then these two bastards fucking fully drew me in, and they brought me back on board, and they delivered the final 2 rounds that would, whatever way you say, whatever you say about the build up, and Stevie Wonder could have seen fucking Chris Eubank Jr. or Senior was going to make his appearance last night. The WWE ring entrance, it was all great. It was a big stadium. You could see why the casuals love it, but the fight itself as a spectacle was horrible, and it was leading us to a place where the main talking point was going to be how dead Eubank looked at the weight after killing himself to make weight, and that was really the only takeaway from the fight. Ben was probably going to go ahead and snatch it, but the balls on Chris Eubank when he looked completely dead for me. The heavier shots that were landing in the fight were coming from Conor Benn. A couple of them I really thought stiffened him up. And I don't think it's because Ben is a massive, massive puncher. I just think Eubank was totally emaciated making that 160. Eddie can fucking piss on my leg if he wants to, but he's not going to tell me it's raining. He's trying to say that he was unprofessional when he missed by fucking a half an ounce. If you miss by 4 pounds, you're unprofessional. If you miss by an ounce, you couldn't make the fucking weight. Like, he's 35 years of age trying to make 160. 5 of his last 12 fights were at 68, and he's only been fighting once a year, so he couldn't make 160, and that's what we saw in the ring. But for them to let it all
missed
hang
a
out,
half an ounce because you forgot what you brought through customs.
yeah. But to for the two of them to let their fucking balls hang in the last 2 rounds and go toe to toe, and Eubank just to will himself to win those last 2 rounds so that he could have his hand raised and the rifle guy have his hand raised at the end of the fight. I just thought it was fucking sensational. And then I forgot about everything negative that I had to say about the fight, and I was like, this is everything I hate about the sport and everything I love about the sport at the same time. And I'm really happy that the right guy got his hand raised. But the more I look into Conor Benn, he was a bit of a pantomime villain, and he's easy to fucking hate. He's unlikable. Every second word out of his mouth is "you're a wanker," and he's fighting everybody on Twitter and nobody in real life, and he pushes lads, and he's unlikable little shit, like, isn't he? But when you strip all that back, I referenced it a couple of weeks ago on the pad and said that he's on the pod and said that he's living up to his dad. But and I thought that was just a hunch, but when you actually see it, and you see Ben last night, Nigel Benn Senior comes out in the interview and he said one of the first thing he said was he stayed on the ropes too much. And Conor Benn's heart broke on the fucking TV screen. His lips started quivering. It's like he's living up to the dad. And I thought maybe that's coming from the young guy. But then when I saw them in the post fight, and Eddie's in there giving him his speech, telling him he's a hero and he's the people's champion and yada yada. Was such a lot of waffle, by the way. Nigel Benn started criticizing him a little bit. He was like, "I'll let you off tonight, but tomorrow we're gonna go back and talk about what you did wrong, and maybe you get a chance to right your wrongs now down the line." But so I thought that was like very telling, and I think this guy's living his life vicariously through his son a little bit, and he can't live with the fact that Eubank holds that win over him, and the draw as well. I don't think he ever got over it. Like, and He's basically asking his son, who's a welterweight, to go and fucking avenge defeat. Now, you could be, look, you could fucking, you could dismiss that as total waffle if you want to, but I just think you can see that in Conor Benn. He's all hyped up for a reason. Like, he's trying to live up to the outlet, and it's never going to happen. But anyway, I don't want to fucking go down a fucking psychological rabbit hole. I'm just trying to say that I think the fight delivered for what it was.
Dad talk.
It was
It's Adam's favorite part of the asylum.
The fight delivered for what it was. It was a very fair fight, but on a serious note, right? And I don't want to fucking get on a serious note. We have a laugh and a joke on here. On a serious note, Eubank looked completely emaciated. He was 100. He killed himself trying to make 160. He looked dry as a bone in the ring. Dry as a fucking bone. He didn't look like he even rehydrate. The rehydration clause obviously affected him as well. Coming out of the ring last night, he looked like a skeleton. He didn't even have a sweat on him in the fucking dressing room beforehand. He didn't even have a sweat going. So it was dangerous, and I think he looked a shell of his former self. He's 35 years of age, and they're talking about the venue was booked for the rematch for next September. Just let him go up the weight and have a fight with Canelo or something, even though Canelo will wrap him up in a blanket, and let fucking Ben go back down to 147. This is fucking dangerous. You don't want to fucking. They got away with one last night. They got away with one, and the fact that he had to go to the hospital after the fight, in a fight where he didn't ship heavy punishment really throughout it. He just looked like he was walking underwater and he was dead at the weight. The fact that he had to go to fucking hospital and he was still there today with exhaustion tells you that you can't bring this guy back down to 160 again for this fight. And I don't give a shit what Eddie Hearn says about it. It was unprofessional and he makes 160 comfortably. Ben Shalom. All of them are going to say that because they get the fucking pound note out of it. But very few of them will be there if something goes wrong. So I think they got away with one. The fight was what it was. It delivered it over delivered in terms of action with the way the fight ended. And I think the rightful guy got his hand raised. We don't need to see it again.
No, yeah, I think that was a fair summary there. The guy who's keeping the lights on here, Daniela De Rossi, throwing in a tenor, says, great discussion, guys. Honestly, grazie. Question, if you are a promoter, then what do you guys do to replenish interest and talent in pro boxing? Grazie, guys. Lazio Marda, Riposa and Pace, Papa Francesco. Yes, rest in peace to the Pope. He was. I have a very, very soft spot for the Jesuits. They've constantly said
bunch of lads.
They've constantly said "fuck you" to the brass of the Catholic Church for centuries upon centuries, and then they finally got one in there. So, much love to the Pope. But yeah, that's to replenish interest and talent in pro boxing. Honestly, I think that's where this DAZN pay-per-view model and wrapping so much of this in a subscription or pay-per-view to see is going to be dangerous, because I think, honestly, where it works best is in the UK, because you have all of these local rivalries, local gyms, local ticket sellers, area belts, English belts, the Commonwealth, all of that together. There's this different path that really doesn't exist in the United States, and it's built on the local level. But if so much of this talent is absorbed by one entity, and they take your viewing possibilities, basically away from people, what's going to happen? That local scene might die out because there's not any funds really to play with it, because everything's been moved to these big arena shows as undercard events and stuff. And that's what I worry about, is that this monopolization of British boxing, which it definitely is more so than the United States, that it's going to definitely affect the local events, and that is going to damage where that genuine interest starts at, the grassroots interest in the sport, where guys follow folks up, and every once in a while you follow the local kid from the amateurs into the pros, all the way through the Commonwealth belts, and then, fighting for a world championship one day at the home stadium. That story exists many times over in British boxing. But I think if they kill the local scene, they might kill that. As far as the United States goes, if our economy gets worse and worse, more people are going to find their way into the boxing ring, and we'll get a wealth of talent. The
Every count.
poverty tends to produce a fair number of decent athletes. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'd feel free to open up the floor to that. I think that was a good question there. And thanks again for the super chat.
You want me to come in there, Matty?
Anyone. Yeah, to open the floor. Yeah.
Well, thanks to Daniel De Rossi for that super chat. That's really good of him. If I had my way, I think the slow decline of boxing has been these exclusive deals with promoters and networks. I don't think we've got a talent pool that could be split into 2 or 3 across 2 or 3 networks, where one group fight over there and another group fight over there. We don't have that type of talent, and boxing is not that type of sport where it captivates people's imagination. It's not like football with the European Cup and my team never play in the Champions League, but it doesn't matter because on Sunday we're playing the Arsenal and next week we play Liverpool. We don't have the talent pool in boxing. So I would want to see as many promoters as you can on one network, 3, 4 or 5 promoters. And I would get ahead of boxing at the network to say, look, we call the shots here. Now deliver us a card and we'll put the budget up and then you go and do all the logistic work. But I would also try and keep the money sensible so we can spread it across. And I think what's really important in British boxing is that we see development of young fighters and get to know them a bit. So rather than have a show at the O2 and then a little bit of famine for 6 weeks, then another show at the O2, then a bit of famine, then a show at the Co-op, I think we should have shows 3 times a month, but at small hall arenas. So you can have a show at the York Hall or the Goresbrook or somewhere in Birmingham or somewhere in Manchester, somewhere in Belfast, because small halls create atmosphere. They create regularity. You can stack out a card. Fighters have to be responsible for selling tickets. That within itself builds a crowd, builds an interest. And some of the greatest fights you'll see are 2 kids fighting on 6-rounders, 8-rounders, and the winner fights for an area belt. Danny Hunt and Lee Niga, if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. It's one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. Jamie Moore and Matthew Macklin was 2 British middleweights fighting for a British title. These were all on Friday nights on leisure centres. So we don't have to have big arenas. We don't have to have stadium fillers. It's nice to have that 4 or 5 times a year, but we should be having a steady diet of smaller shows where we get to know fighters and fighters can develop. And if you've got kids coming off Olympic programs, I really believe in fast tracking them. So I say, look, I want to see Ben Whittaker out 10 times this year, but 4 of them will be on telly. And the other 5 or 6 times, injuries permitting, we'll get you around the country, we'll get you around Europe. We'll look after you. We'll make sure you're not out on your own. But we want to get you to 20-0 or 20-1 or 19-1 within 2.5 years. So we can now take you to that next level. And by the time you get there, the country will know about you because we'll have been doing our work behind the scenes. But I think we've got too many fighters that are getting probably too much upfront money, too many fighters that have got too much inactivity, and the distance between shows, the time lapse between shows is too much. We don't get to know fighters no more. And non-boxing fans or semi-boxing fans don't have a product they can watch. So we need it on more regularly. So I understand there's a cost implication, but I'd spread it across. There's plenty of money in boxing at the moment. And boxing needs more regularity on the telly, whether it's a Wednesday night or a Friday night, whether it's a next generation show or a type of show where we don't give kids loads of money. It's up to them to sell tickets, but the reward is they're being active and they're getting television time. And the final thing I'd say, and this is a conversation that all networks have got to have, a kid with a losing record or a kid that's lost 2 or 3, it shouldn't be held against them, because it's not held against tennis players. It's not held against golfers. It ain't held against footballers that are losing titles or FA Cup games. We've got to stop doing it to boxers. So I think if we try to implement all of that, and it's only going back to where we was at the first 10 years of the Sky Revolution, if we can go back to that, I think boxing will be in a much healthier state. And if you think back to where boxing was in the first 10 years of the Sky Revolution, We had superstars like Naz and Calzaghe and Ben and Eubank and Lennox, and we had a brilliant crop just underneath them. We were never short of talent. So that's where I'd like to go with boxing.
I like that. Rob, I saw that you were unmuted. I think you wanted to put your take in on this subject.
No, I was just unmuted because I hadn't probably muted myself, that way. I don't think I could say it better than Ben. I think boxing, for me, in terms of replacing talent, boxing is in a difficult spot globally because we're at the kind of end of a cycle of having fighters that are in the sport that can bring crossover appeal, and crossover appeal is always needed to keep the lifeblood of the sport going, because you need kids to take up the sport because they want to be like someone that they've seen on the TV. So we've had a Tyson Fury, he's on the way out. Usyk and Dubois has just been announced. I think you got to think Usyk's not going to hang around for too much longer. Floyd retired, Manny retired. That vacuum was never really filled down the lower weights. Crawford's on his way out. Canelo's on his way out. We haven't had anybody come through to replace these guys. You had Ryan Garcia, who obviously fucking turned into a circus, and Joshua's on the way out as well. So all the guys, the kind of big ticket sellers, the ones who cause those casual conversations to happen, who bring in the outside interest to the sport, they're gone, and there doesn't seem to be anyone replacing them. So that's why you see them scrambling to make a fight like the Ben and Eubank one, because what do? You have to get asses in seats. You have to keep the sports going. So I think it's in a transitional period. Someone will come along and capture the imagination. That's why I like keeping the eyes on the likes of Ben Whitaker, whether you like him or loathe him. He's one of those ones that can bring engagement from a bigger audience and put eyes to the sport. Ryan Garcia was really where I had my hopes for that. He had everything going for him. And he's dropped the ball, hasn't he? So it needs a star, and it needs big rivalries as well. What you need is fighters fighting each other when they're in prime for prime, and there's no promotional issues. So that seems to be waning a little bit with the Turkey Al Sheikh checkbook involved. You can get the fights done, but we really need young guys coming through. We need to, I don't know, maybe a breakout Olympic star, something like that, something to capture the imagination of the public. And you need good promoters too, by the way. You need people that are able to do their job and sell these fighters and match them correctly on the way up and build a profile. And yeah, that's what I think at the moment. I just think we're in a little bit of a kind of an end of a cycle. And it remains to be seen who drives it forward.
Yeah, interesting. Justin, why don't we go to you for an American perspective on this? And I'll tell you, as far as the basics of building up stars goes, there's something going on in the United States that, regardless the corruption in amateur boxing and having to work their ass off to get reinstated back in the Olympics, the simple fact of the matter is that the United States in the amateur boxing system is a completely broken system at this point in time, and it's just not producing fighters who are capable of competing on the international scene.
No, we haven't. United States hasn't had a good boxing team in the Olympics in years. We haven't even. I mean, hell, I think the last Olympics we weren't competitive at all, which is a shame for the fact that it doesn't matter. I mean, this is the American point of it is USA is the home of boxing. I mean, it just is. It always, the best of the best have usually come from this country, and they've all went to the Olympics. They've all,
or at least come to fight in this country later on, right?
And now it's like the Olympics are not. We're not producing. We don't give the money. I think that's a huge thing because countries like Uzbekistan, you got Kazakhstan. I think over in England, their programs are like 10 times more funded than the USA programs are. They just do so much more. They have a home base that's more. I don't explain. There's more. I don't know if you say there's more interest. I guess there is, but those countries are pouring money into it. We're not. We're not getting medals. We're not competing at the high. We're not really. There's no. When's the last time we've had some guys that's done well in the Olympics? But that's years ago. We don't.
Andre Ward is still the last male Olympic gold medalist, and that's 2004.
Yeah, so usually that's the Olympics, United States. You would always figure we were going to get a few medals, one gold here, there. But we're not even getting to the bronze stage now, and you've only got to get to the semifinals. we're not even getting that far in half of this stuff. And so it's not like, I think I told you, was it a couple weeks ago, about that Edwards kid coming out. It's not a big deal anymore to say that you were an Olympian because it's not as hard as it was to make the Olympics as it used to be, because the depth is not there. So you've got guys making the Olympic teams, and I've watched them in the Olympics. They're just not that good. They're kind of below average guys, but the depth is not there. I went and watched them. There was a thing around here, I think it was last year. So they had a bunch of amateurs, some kind of competition near me. I think it was in South Carolina. The level is just not what you would think it would be for the guys that are like, well, he's coming in as this champ of this region, and he's done this. And you're like, man, he's just not that high a level of a guy. So it's sad. I mean, I want to be competitive. I mean, I'm glad they're still letting the boxing at the Olympics, but when you go watch nowadays, you just know United States is not going to be that competitive, and other countries with way less people to choose from than way less than we do, are just it's all about emphasis. It's all about who wants to get after it. And I mean, and so that's just is what it is. I'm not going to complain about it because there's no point. We're still going to produce the Crawfords. We're still going to produce these guys, the Spence, we're still going to have top guys. We're still got, Keyshawn, all these guys come out. And I think now the Olympic boxing doesn't have the same, it doesn't have the same shine to it as it did 20, 30 years ago. Boxers now are like, they just rather go pro. It's not for some people it is, but it doesn't hold that same glamour as it used to. Oh, I'm an Olympian. And guys just want to get paid. It doesn't hold the same, especially in this country. They just want to get after it and get paid. And I don't blame them. I mean, I don't blame them. Well, I spent 4 years. I mean, because if you want to go the Olympic route, you've got to commit yourself to 3. I mean, it's a long time and a lot of effort. And if you can get paid right away, then I can see why you just get paid right away.
Well, and then you do have those cases. I think it might have been Rashi Warren who went multiple times and got absolutely jobbed.
He went to 3 Olympics and got robbed like 2 of them.
Yeah, and
kept going back.
And because he wanted a medal, so you waste all that time you could have been earning fucking paper, and just to go and get fucking jacked.
Well, we talked about him, Patty Barnes, we've talked about that last week. You can go to the amateurs too long, and Rashi Warren is a guy that went
100%. A lot of Irish amateurs did that.
Long. Yeah, and Patty Barnes, he had no pro career because he left it all in like his 20-year amateur run. And so
the thing with that was that the Irish high performance program, I think at the time, was paying about $50K, and they were getting all their expenses. They were getting they had their diet, their nutrition.
That's up,
rest in peace. And I know he found it very difficult when he went from the amateur program to turning over to pro, living in digs in London, and having to kind of basically hire all the resources himself, like pay for his own sparring, his nutritionist, etc., stuff like that. Like, so they were very kind of the Irish Olympic team for boxing was its best performing amateur team, and it was always in the medals. So because of that, it got the most funding, and the knock-on effect from that is the lads were getting used to kind of maybe getting a few quid and then getting sponsorships, endorsements as well, to subsidize it. They're actually coming out with a nice little packet. Which is why Jason Quigley actually fucking was having a baby, and he was like, I'm fucking turning pro, like I'm going to America, I can't live on this, like I have a family. But other fellas, it was a little bit more attractive. I think fellas just got a little bit comfortable, like, and then of course you're going for the Olympics, so you're fighting for something, like you're fighting for a piece of cherished silverware. So yeah, but it was my criticism as well. A lot of the guys, I felt like if you had one Olympic campaign, win, lose or draw, turn over after that, because life is short, like, and you have a fucking very small window to make money, like. But it's easy fucking for me to say, isn't it? Has to do it.
See, over there it's different. It's like if you win a gold medal for Ireland, you're a god for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
you win
money for the rest of your life. Yeah,
you win a medal here, you might not get recognized in your family reunion.
That's what I'm saying. They were like, you could. I mean, that's exactly what I was making. You win a medal here, nobody's gonna know who the hell you are. But like in Ireland, it means something because like you're going to be Scotland, these countries over there, you're. For the rest of your life, you're never going to pay for a meal. You're going to be set for life just because how much it means to them. That's why I'm talking about over here. Like Matt just said, you're not going to get recognized. You got to go kill somebody. They probably will get more better recognized than winning the gold medal. They're not going to pay attention to you over here. So I see the point of like guys in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all these countries staying so long because it's not just the medals, the money, it's the fame. It's just you're a celebrity over there. You're not a celebrity here.
No, yeah, I think that was.
There's so much
all
money
fair
in
points.
pro sports in America as well for the other sports, like the football, basketball, fucking it's mega bucks, isn't it? In any of those, like,
And its entry level is way better. That's a big problem too. Is like getting going is not easy. Making a couple grand here and there and trying to work a regular day job if you're not a blue chipper with all the help in the world and a signing bonus, like. You go into any other regular major sport, I mean, you're making, mid six figures if you're on the bottom end of the scope.
But also, Matty, as well, you've got to remember, the talent in America is like no other country. So, for example, if I give you David Benavidez and Bud, Virgil Ortiz and Boots and Tio, Hitchens, Tank, Shakur, Keyshawn, Mason, Bam, Collazo, other than Hitchens, all of them guys could conceivably get caught out at a major championship, whether it's the Worlds or the Olympics, because their style doesn't suit amateur boxing. And they could all get beaten by a 32-year-old Bulgarian that's had 3 Olympics and 4 World Games, because their style doesn't suit the amateurs. So what them guys do, because there's nothing wrong with your boxing system. There's nothing wrong. To turn out them guys tells me that your system is the best in the world. But what them guys have decided is, do I spend 4 to 6 years in an elite sports program where I get paid this much money and possibly get nurtured into be a lion brought up in the zoo? Or do I go now and retain this lion in the wild and become the pro that I know I can be? And if you look at people like Mason and Keyshawn and Tank and Tio and Ennis and Ortiz, Bud and Benavidez, them guys turned over early. And they went for it, and it's paid dividends for them. So I just think, we look at guys like Fraser Clark, Joe Joyce, Audley Harrison. I know they're all big guys. David Price, take it to Yoka. A lot of these guys coming out of elite sports institutions, they're shadows of the fighters they could have been. And the guys we're talking about in America, they're not going to fall for that. They say, no, do you know what? There's enough money, there's enough sponsorship. I've got enough recognition in my own town to say, do you know what, I can go and get 10, 15 fights under my belt in the next 2 years, because they do move fast, and then I can be on the ladder of having a pro career. And all them guys are probably in everyone's top 15, top 20 pound for pound rankings. So there's nothing wrong with your system. Your system's working. You're turning out super talent, like talent that no other country is seeing. But they're just not standing the amateurs no more. And when you look around the amateur system and the fires that we're getting out of the amateurs, not just us, the guys that hang around on the Olympic cycle representing countries like America or Brazil or Mexico or France or Germany, they don't seem to amount to much in the pros no more. So I just think it's a calculated decision, but I don't think it's about not having the talent.
Good take. I enjoyed that conversation quite a bit there. So thank you very much for that one, Mr. De Rossi. We appreciate all your support, and we try to give back to you as much as we can, and we were happy to have that conversation. Actually, that was a good topic. But we're going to have to move ahead and check out what in God's name is coming ahead this week in the world of boxing. Well, we got a couple of big cards that they want money for. What are you going to do? The first one we're going to have, this is going to be, actually, if you want to attend this live in person for people in New York City, it's free. Yeah, I mean, they have some VIPs and stuff like that. So for people who want to go to Times Square and check this out, you can. Going to be a DAZN pay-per-view, Times Square, New York City. 3 fights on there. We got Teofimo Lopez against Arnold Barboza, Devin Haney and Jose Ramirez, and Ryan Garcia versus Raleigh Romero. This is an interesting card. The closest fight with the books by a long shot is Teo against Arnold Barboza Jr., who just had that standout victory against Jack Catterall. And it's I feel like he brings a lot of stuff to the ring that some of the people who have given Lopez fits in prior fights brought too. So I don't know about this fight. I see why it's close with the odds makers on paper. And I could definitely see Barboza sneaking through with this one. I don't know. I feel like this fight in particular, if it goes the distance, Justin, I think it could be contentious.
I think this fight comes down to what Tio shows up. If he's 100% on it, Barboza does. I know. I agree with you saying to a point, but Barboza doesn't get close if Tio's on it. If he's ready to roll and he's got his head right and he's in shape and I don't see anything Barboza, because I think the Catterall win kind of flattered Barboza. I know, because I don't think he was that great. I think that was a horrible fight. I don't think he was that great versus Catterall. I just think Catterall's not that great either. I think Barboza is kind of in between the fight he had before and the Catterall fight when he fought the Irish guy. I think he's kind of in between that. He's, like I said, he's flattered by the Catterall win. I just believe that I forget rid of his personality, forget outside the ring. I just think Lopez, talent-wise, ability-wise, is a level above Barboza. But, like I said, that being said, who knows? If Lopez shows up, he's ready to rock and roll. I don't see what Barboza does that he could beat Tio. But who knows? Barboza, like you just said, though, I think you kind of said it too, that Barboza does have enough about him, though. If Lopez is off, he can get him. But I don't think he's going to knock him out. I don't think he'll knock Barboza out, but he should outclass him. Should. I guess you can capitalize the should part. He should outclass him.
Yeah, it's, on face value, but then we've seen all these fights where guys come and they try to walk the perimeter with Tio and box him and go low activity and make him lead. And he just is confused as shit. Des, I know you're super hot on Teofimo Lopez. He's one of your, favorite fighters as far as those today and what you see in the ring. But there is that glaring weakness in his game that a low output fighter that wants to box the perimeter gives him fits.
Yeah, I'm big on Tio, but let's talk about Barboza just for a minute. Okay.
Sure.
Here's a guy that really got himself back on track by taking fights that nobody thought he could win. And then he goes and beats Sean McComb in New York, goes out to Riyadh and fights Ramirez, beats him, goes over to Manchester, fights Jack Catterall, beats him, and his first defense takes on one of the top 10 pound for pounders in the game in Tio. Now, could you imagine, and it's exactly what I said about American promoters, American fighters, and mentality and mindset. We would never do that. Could you imagine a British guy fighting Sean McCone?
I'll interrupt you there because because this is all done under Turki Al-Sheikh and the various promoters working with him. Barboza left Top Rank because they would not fast track him. They would not get him the fights.
He weren't even appreciating his own in LA. He wasn't even appreciating in California. So he went on the road. But could you imagine the mindset and the mentality of someone like that? And his first defense saying, no, I'll fight Tio. I think Tio beats him. I think Tio beats him soundly. I think Tio's probably the purest athlete in boxing and one of the biggest talents we've got in boxing. And it's only because we've seen let me struggle this way. Let me put my teeth in. Eccentricity of Tio that we sometimes doubt him. And he got caught out against the Australian kid, right, which should never have happened for him. But I think that was his Duran moment, because Duran had that against Kirkland Lang. Every now and then these crazy Latinos, no disrespect, that are full of talent and can beat anyone on their night. They have these nights where they turn up because boxers are real disciplined. They have a bowl of cereal and say, I'll go for an extra run tomorrow. They have a late night because they're with someone they really like the look of. They go to the club. If Tio's right, and this is for a world title, and this will be the main event in Brooklyn. Is it Brooklyn? Or is it Madison? Or is it the Garden?
Times Square in Manhattan.
Right. So he's in New York. Tio's going to be right for this. It's just like he was with Josh Taylor. You're going to see a brilliant version of Tio, and he'll light Barboza up. And that's not Barboza's fault. Barboza's game. Barboza's a real one. But this is exactly what we were talking about earlier. How in England we seem to marinate and marinate and marinate, and what we're left with is a Kell Brook and Amir Khan, or what they're going to announce in a couple of weeks, Fury and Joshua, 3 or 4 years past its sell-by date. They don't stand for that in America. It wouldn't see the light of day. But this is perfect what I'm seeing. Barbosa in his first defence, Times Square in New York, I'll fight Tio. He'll bring a crowd. He'll be at his best. I think Tio lights Barbosa up, and I think Barbosa just becomes a static target. I agree with Justin. Barbosa wasn't brilliant against Jack, but neither was. I mean, Jack was pretty static and one-dimensional, and he got caught out after 3 or 4 fights of catching other kids out, and Barbosa caught Cattrall out. So I think Tio is a class above. I think he'll win.
All right, and Rob, give us your take on this fight. It's again, the odds are closer with this fight on paper for a reason. I don't necessarily believe that this is the fight that ends in the upset. But where are you leaning on this one? Like, if for some reason Tio just does seem to have these moments where he just finds a way to shit the bed. I just worry about that. Like, for his level of talent, he's one of the most inconsistent fighters I can think of.
Well, if you want to go fucking dad psychology route again, there's clearly fucking something at play there between Tio and the pressures that I think he has so much pressure on his shoulders from the Outland. He has allegedly a crazy relationship with the girl he has the kid with. And for me, the alarm bell started ringing over the Daz involvement when they cut out Joey Gamache. Man, I'm not just fucking saying that because I used to hang out with Joey or whatever, but I just think he was a very astute tactician when it comes to boxing. His input can't be understated. And when Tio was fighting 2-3 times a year and he was knocking out the likes of Richard Comey, Nakatani, I was giving him a shout against Lomachenko. If you go back to the pod, I was thinking he has a right chance.
You and me were the only ones who really thought that he had a shot in that fight.
Yeah, and it was straight lines. I thought, like, his Deza spoke about his athleticism. He's so athletically gifted. He's so strong. He's so quick. His power is real. But after the Kambosos fight, he's only really been fighting once a year. He seems to make these big demands on where he places his own value in the sport. He talks a lot of shit. Having said that, I think he'd wipe out Barboza, but there's something fucking not right here. I don't know what I can't put my finger on it. There's something. He should be one of the biggest names in the sport. He should be a massive draw. I don't know what's happening. I don't know the reason for his inactivity. Obviously, there was that COVID period after that, but the Kambosos loss was a strange one because George Kambosos should never beat Teofimo Lopez ever. And like you said, Sandor Martin, he got the win over him, but Sandor Martin probably should have got the win that night, picked his pocket. He didn't look good in the fight before Sandor Martin, from my memory. Then he went out and he blitzed Josh Taylor.
You're thinking about the fight after that, I think, against Jermaine Ortiz.
Yeah, didn't look great in that one. Blitzed Josh Taylor, but Josh Taylor is where Josh Taylor is. I don't think he's really necessarily been living the life outside the ring either. He has it all, and he should be, when he's able to put it together, he should be one of the most exciting guys in the sport. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But I think there's a mental fragility there. I don't know if it's gonna come to light in this particular bout, but later down the line, I think you'll see that again from him, because there's just something. I don't know. There's a piece missing there for me. But having said that, a fucking exciting guy, really talented. Used to be able to, I don't know if the power is actually after carrying up that much, but was a scary puncher down the weight. And I think I'd like to see him. He's one of these ones I want to see. I want to see him with all these guys need to start fighting each other now. This is kind of maybe, this card is maybe creating the pathway for that, right? So it's creating the pathway for Haney versus Garcia too, provided both of them come through it. And then maybe Tio fights the winner. Maybe Tank's in the mix at some stage, although he seems to be fucking checked out doing his own thing. But these guys all need to fight each other, whether it's somebody coming up or whatever the fuck happens. But yeah, Teofimo Lopez for me, man, fucking brilliant fighter. But I think that was a big mistake getting rid of Joey Gamache out of the training camp when it's just him and the Da. I feel someone could have his number some night, because I don't think he's great at making adjustments on the spot. I think he needs to be drilled rather than let him deal with things and figure it out himself, like downloading the data and all that. He's not one of those type of fighters. Like, I think he's a racehorse. Like, you give him a plan and you stick to it. But like, it's hugely athletically gifted, really, really fucking exciting style. And so I think he should have enough for Barboza. I think he should punch holes in Barboza, but I don't know after this what's his next move. He wants a lot of money as well, doesn't he? He has such a fucking, he talks a lot of wild shit like Teofimo Lopez. He's really like, and I think he gets that off the stones, by the way, when you listen to the dad talking. Like, it's an age old sport. We could have another pod about that, like, really. But Teofimo Lopez versus Barboza, I think it's a big one for Barboza, given his first offense against Lopez. But he'll have no pressure on him because everyone kind of feels like Lopez is going to have his number, is going to have too much for him, but he might secretly be confident enough. Like, I get this for the past 6 rounds and stuff, fiddling him about. Let's see, will he fucking mentally break? Like, and that could happen too. So I wouldn't actually be surprised if Barboza pulls the win off, but Lopez has got to be the heavy favorite, I think.
Is this the first fight with the Canelo guys?
Is he with Reynoso?
I think he's with Reynoso. I think this is the first one.
Barboza is with Reynoso?
No, I think Tio is.
Oh, Tio's with Reynoso, is he? He's ditched the dad, then, has he?
There's no way the Reynoso can be in his corner for the fight, though, because Reynoso is going to be in Saudi with Canelo.
I know he was at a fight one of the Reynosos was doing because he was there in the corner with him, and I think he's been with them. Now, you're right. They might not be at this fight, but I know he's been training with them. But that ain't going to mean shit if it's just his dad. Like,
so I've been talking shit then. If the dad's gone out of the picture, that might make a difference for sure.
But if they're in Saudi, both of them are going to go, then it probably is just going to be his dad again. It probably would just be his dad, because if they're in Saudi, because I know he's been training.
Okay, so maybe some of the listeners can fill us in there. I haven't been keeping up with the current affairs, but if he's ditched the dad, I would certainly think that's a positive sign. Like, I think that's a positive sign. I think the dad doesn't seem to ever give any great instructions either when he's under fire. He seems to talk a lot of shit as far as I can see, but yeah, that'll be interesting for him for sure. If he's training with a different trainer and they have him dialed in and locked in, then he might be a different animal for sure.
It's always a funny one with the dads, though. It's always a funny one with the dads because sometimes it's such a unique, cute relationship. It's not what he says; it's just the fact it's his voice. I've seen that so many times. So Tio might just respond to the voice of his dad, and we know the dad's a crackerjack. But it ain't what he says. It's the familiarity of the voice. It takes him back to when he was a kid. He knows how to respond, because there's no other way that when I look at these Angel Garcias and these Tio Lopez's fathers and some of the other crackerjacks we see in boxing, it's just a familiarity I think that works for him.
Could be right. Now I'm interested to see what's going on with the corner.
I just found the article. It just come out a couple weeks ago. The Reynosos come out and said that they're not training him anymore because he wouldn't give them 100% of his time, and they don't have time to mess with somebody if it's not going to give them all their time. So Rob's right. It's going to be the dad again, and it could be a shit show because he went. The reason I can't train Garcia or Tio is because my guys have to be 100% focused and on their dates, and these guys I can't do a camp with both of them. Forget it.
You didn't have the same issue with Ryan Garcia.
There you go.
Yeah, he said I can't deal with it.
I think to be part of that team, you've got to be very rigid. You've got to be very disciplined, and you've got to bend to their way. And
that's what he was saying. He's like, you have to work on his schedule. He doesn't work on your schedule.
Correct,
and they're not going to do that. So you're right. Rob's right. It's going to be his dad, and God knows what's going to happen then. Because Barboza has been talking shit about the dad, saying if he's going to be trained by his dad, then I'm going to win that fight. So they're already talking shit. So who knows what's going to happen then?
Well, there you go.
It's the unknown with Tio, though, isn't it? You used to watch him for a different reason. You used to watch him because he was so dynamic and he had so much power and he was so exciting. Now you watch him because you don't know what the fuck, which one is going to turn up like. Just because they're paranoid doesn't mean they're not trying to kill me. You know that way?
Oh, man. Well, so we're already off to an interesting start with this card. And then, so also on this one, and I feel most comfortable about this one being one-way traffic. It's Devin Haney against Jose Ramirez. Last time out, you saw Ramirez losing to the aforementioned Barboza, another guy who suffered from inactivity in his career. I just, even though he's been more active with Golden Boy, I think this is a guy who's definitely on the downside of what was a pretty decent career at 140 with some good wins. A close fight with Josh Taylor that was, really decided by the knockdowns at the end of the day. But I just feel like Devin Haney, as long as he's not mentally absolutely scarred from eating leather from Ryan Garcia, I have to lean into the idea, Justin, that this is the easiest fight to pick of the night. Just my opinion.
Oh yeah, this is if Haney wants to kind of get back in there and see if he's so got everything. This is the perfect fight because Ramirez is tailor made for him. Ramirez has been washed for about 3-4 years now. Because you remember he had that big push because he was from Fresno and they had all that, but Ramirez hasn't been top level in a long time. He's going to come right at Haney. This is the perfect matchmaking opponent that they look for because he's got a name, so people are going to know him. Haney's going to look good. This is set up to be the easiest fight of the weekend. Haney doesn't knock anybody out, so I don't think he'll knock Ramirez out, but he's just going to – this could be like a 120, 108 kind of fight. I don't see Ramirez maybe – I don't think Ramirez is even still around. It's going to be a boring, simple fight, but it's probably what Haney needs because, like you said, Garcia did just beat the shit out of him. Regardless, he had the drugs or not, whatever happened, you say the drugs were it, but he just beat him up. So this is the perfect opponent to kind of slide back in, get your confidence back, and Ramirez is just tailor-made. Ramirez at this point, he never was that great anyway. He was a pressure fighter who didn't have a ton of power, but really outworked you, had a good motor, but that was all he had. So yeah, this is the perfect man to look good for Haney.
Yeah, that's just my hunch going in on this. I feel like this weekend something crazy is going to happen. There's no way you get through this many fights and not have a shocking event. I don't think this fight is it, Des. I think the most shocking thing you might see in this fight is Haney getting a late KO.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And I like what Justin said. This is a perfect way. I like the way he worded it, for Haney to slide back in. He's been out of the ring for a year, Devin. And the last time he was in was the whole Ryan Garcia thing. And whatever happened now, however that ever turned out, and it's been taken to a no contest, it did cop a good iodine. And there's a not very good chance that Ryan Garcia might have taken Devin Haney's soul. I'm not quite sure he has, because he's another one that's got a strong role model around him, and they're a good, strong unit, and Devin is very talented. I think Ramirez is the perfect opponent, as Justin said, to slide back in at a very good level, beating a respectable guy. I think this one's about levels. I think Haney's a level or two above Ramirez. I expect him to win, and the late stoppage could be on. I don't think it is, though. I think Haney will get into a groove. I think he'll find a rhythm, and I think he'll enjoy that groove. And I think he'll see it out. I think he'll be a unanimous points winner.
Unanimous, yeah, that's probably the safe money would be Haney by decision. Rob, I'd love to go deep on this, but I think again, like this just seems the most predictable fight of the bunch, and unfortunately, we can't add much value to the overall discussion on this one. It just is.
Yeah, Haney off the jab. It's interesting to see, does he stay hit, because he took some serious punishment in the Ryan Garcia fight. That can't be understated. Garcia came in over the weight purposefully and fucking juice to the motherfucking gills on some nuclear cocktail of fucking performance enhancing drugs, and fucking left hooked him into oblivion, turned him into a meme. So we'll see what his punch resistance is like if he faces adversity. But you got to think I always think Haney was like, he's a bit of an enigma, like, isn't he? He's not as good as he thinks he is. He's not as good as Bill Haney thinks he is, but he's still good enough. Like, he's fundamentally decent. He's athletic. He's got a very good jab. He's got fucking a dossier from Boxercise Ben in his favor. So he's got a lot of things. He's got a lot of things
He's
going for
so
him.
fundamentally sound, it makes him slightly predictable at times.
Yeah, and you got to feel for the kid as well because he's only a young guy, like, right? And look at all the stuff that he's had to kind of absorb. He's had Floyd turn on him and leak his sparring footage with Tank. You've had all that shit. Like he was unpopular in boxing circles because they fucking emailed him the world title and they call him the Gmail champion. He didn't beat Lomachenko, but he got the nod. Um, and then you're thinking that he's going to have his moment against Ryan Garcia, where he's having his coming out party. He's got a big name dance party, big name dance partner, and he's supposed to be the beneficiary of gaining fans and traction after beating a big name. And what happens? Garcia fucking goes full fucking Bohemian Grove, turns fucking plays wrestling heel, fucking comes in fat.
Power of the
and on the-
owl.
Yeah, comes in fatting on the gear and fucking beats the shit out of him, like, and it seemed like nobody had any sympathy for him. Whereas there was another fighter, I think everybody would be fucking up in arms over that, but because Bill Haney is such a fucking schlep and he's just an unpopular guy, isn't he? Like Haney, he's made himself kind of unpopular, so you have to feel for him like a little bit in that situation.
Bill Haney
And
is like W. Kamau Bell with a GED.
So yeah, I don't know, like you feel for Haney a little bit. Like nothing seems to pan out the way it should have for the way that the trajectory that they're looking to get on. It hasn't fucking played out. Like there's always an obstacle in the way, and he seems to be, no matter what he does in the ring, he just seems to be so unpopular with fight fans. Like, and I don't know if he's ever going to be able to turn it around. I definitely don't see a mass fucking turnaround based on Saturday night. He'd probably get a predictable points win, set up the rematch with Garcia. It's still an interesting fight because of everything that happened in the first fight. But yeah, I don't know. I won't spend too much time on it. I think it should be an easy Haney win. I don't think there's anything too dramatic going to happen in the fight. I think it should be a shutout for Haney, like based off the jab, but we'll see.
All right.
Guy's coming off a loss as well, isn't he? He's coming off a loss to Barboza Ramirez.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think Haney should. It's a perfect opponent for Haney at this time. Like.
Yeah, I think they tried to plan this one perfectly, and I just feel that the main event. I discussed this a couple weeks ago. I just feel like the main event is the one where things can go awry, and that's just because Ryan Garcia is so unpredictable. His opponent, Rolly Romero, is so unpredictable, but he's a guy who, a few fighters who've been in there with him say he's, probably the hardest puncher they faced. And he's going in there with nothing to lose. This fight, I mean, is huge, huge wide odds. I mean, not, massively, but I think Rolly's paying more than 5-1. I'd have to look it up. But I just get the hunch that if best laid plans are to fail over this weekend, on this side of the token, the 140 side, 147, ish, wherever they might fight side of the token, Justin, I just think this is the one where something goes weird. I don't know why. I've had that feeling for the last month.
This could end up being the what was the two heavyweight guys that threw himself out the ring the other day? This could be that kind of shit. Like, you could have really. I mean, I could see any possible outcome. No contest, DQ, Romero landing some crazy ass behind the head punch that knocks him out. And they missed it. I could see Garcia doing all of a sudden just doing a Galata and falling apart and hitting him in the nuts, and they DQ'd. But I think the most rational outcome is Garcia should stop him. I mean, that's what should happen, but you know how boxing is. But yeah, this is one of those. The reason I will watch it is because it could go down 100 different ways. Romero does throw such crazy shit, and Garcia does have lapses of concentration. He couldn't land some crazy ass punch and do something, but the money on is Garcia should have him out within 3 or 4 rounds. He just has 1,000 times more than what Romero has. You got to give Romero this. This man has talked his way into a lot of money and a lot of fights for no talent. For a lot of little talent, I guess the best to put it. So I give him that. But I give him that fact that he's somehow worked his way and to keep getting fights. But Garcia should knock him out. You would like to think he would, but anything can happen. But I'd say if Garcia is on it and he doesn't play with Romero, this shouldn't go 3 or 4 rounds.
You would hope. I mean, if Garcia is as good as he thinks, that would be the direction it would have to go. But I don't know. He's just such a freaking wild card, and you never know how seriously he's taken anything. He's been out of the ring for a year now because of his suspension from the win over Haney that was turned into a no contest. And with Raleigh, drama follows him. That's, again, it's like the bad reason for why fighters get pressed and things like that. But I don't know, Des. I like Justin. I see a lot of possibilities in this one, and probably the most likely is that Garcia gets some sort of a mid-round TKO over him, and I'm just imagining shit. But I don't know. I could see weird things happening in this one.
Yeah, and you've got to factor in as well that they're both a pair of crackerjacks, and there's a lot of inactivity here. And over the last 2 years, Garcia has not been overly active, but he did come good against Haney, although he did pop. So, yeah, we just don't know until the bell goes. I think he should have enough about him to beat Rowley. Rowley's like your version of O'Hara Davis, isn't he? He's just like, he's out there. He says crazy things. You don't know where he's going to go. And if he can punch a bit, crack a bit, and he is known to pull out the occasional performance. But I just think he's a bit too rugged, not technically good enough. And whatever you think of Ryan and where Ryan is right now, has been for the last 18 months, I think he should have enough to get past Rowley. And I think Rowley would be exhausted and pulled out somewhere around 8 or 9.
Maybe. We certainly don't need him to become concussed again. Hopefully he remembers that Easter was a couple of weeks ago by the time this fight happens.
What I like about Garcia is there's a technical savvy to Garcia. He'll go side on and he'll try and creep in, and when he does that, he's a good hooker, and he gets behind the jab and he builds. I don't get that from Rowley. I think Rowley's pretty square. He's off the cuff. He relies on big punches and power, and I just think he's in the wrong company for that. There'll be a lot of fights Rowley wins, but not this type of fight.
Garcia has almost the opposite problem that some fighters have. Some fighters have a problem of squaring up. Garcia has a problem of getting too open and trying to shoulder roll at weird times, and he becomes just terribly open for a left hook. If he ran into a hooker like himself, I would favor the other guy. But unfortunately, Raleigh's power tends to be in his right hand. I don't know. So, correct. But Rob, give us your thoughts.
I think if Rolly Romero was capable of beating Ryan Garcia, you wouldn't be seeing this fight. I think anytime he's gone up the levels, he's shown that he can do it. And look, I was rooting for him against Pitbull Cruz. I like Rolly because Rolly talks. He's actually funny that he trash talks with such a fucking girly voice and appearance. You know what I mean? Like he's the least intimidating trash talker I've ever fucking seen in boxing, possibly. Like his name is Rolly. Like for fuck's sake. But he looks like almost like a fucking character from a fucking high school US fucking comedy movie or something. Like he could be best friends with fucking Seth Rogen and Michael Cera or something. I don't know. He's a weird kid, like, isn't he?
The guy who talks gangster and then he gets thrown in the fucking trash can.
Yeah, like there's a bit of that with him. Like he's a very strange kid. Like he's but I think anytime he's gone up the level and he's been in with guys with a higher ceiling than him, he's been exposed, and he seems a bit chinny as well when he gets touched. Like saying that now, you're getting knocked out by Tank but Isaac Cruz and that. Like I think like that was a guy that was fucking made for him to look good against. And they say he can punch. Maybe against a certain level he can punch, but I think he's tailor made for Ryan Garcia, and his head is going to be somewhere in Rose's head before the 6th round. I just think, but that depends what fucking Ryan Garcia is. What version of Ryan Garcia comes in. I think obviously we've seen previously that Garcia plays up to the image of a partier or a guy that doesn't take it serious, when he probably does take it a little bit more serious behind the scenes. He's had a year off. Has he been partying for the year off? He's been very quiet. We haven't seen him as much or heard from him as much. when he was serving his ban and that, like, the ban really didn't have too much of an effect on Ryan Garcia. And that he only fucking fights once a year anyway. So, or he had gone into that position where he was only fighting once a year. So, if Ryan Garcia can't beat Rolly Romero, man, he should probably think about hanging him up. I think he knocks out. Yeah, honestly, I think he knocks out Rolly Romero fairly emphatically and fairly early. Like, I think as soon as he gets some, I think you fill him about for a few rounds, and then as soon as he gets some, that'll be it. All she wrote, like.
All right. So yeah, well, that was that card's going to be Times Square Friday night, early Saturday morning. If you're in the UK, wake up, buy it on pay-per-view, download it. I don't care. Then we're going to have the next day from Saudi Arabia, and I think.
Oh shit, we got D2 in the chat, by the way. Shout out D2. He's in the chat there. I'm not going to give away his government, but he's in there. Him and Ames are tuned in. Ames. Ames recovering after getting knocked out by an 11-year-old, dropped twice by an 11-year-old in sparring, I heard in recent weeks. So it's tough for him. That's probably why he can't come on. He's probably eating through a straw now at the moment. Can't come on. But we wish him well.
We do wish him well, and we hope that on all of his journeys he's able to avoid aggressive children. They seem to be his kryptonite. Just knocking him around. But anyways, gonna hop over to Saudi Arabia. This is gonna be at a time where it makes it so it's more in line with normal American boxing events. So it'll again be, dead middle of the night come early morning for you guys in the UK. But this is the Canelo Alvarez William Scull card. Let's talk about the undercard first. It's stacked. I wouldn't say it's stacked, but it's interesting enough. I think that this particular fight is possibly the most interesting one on the entire card, even including the main event. Martin Bakole coming off of his late notice short round stoppage against Joseph Parker. Losing, an effort when he stepped in on very, very late notice, came in overweight, and he's taking on Efe Ajagba. I don't know when the last time Efe fought was. That just made me kind of think about that. Efe fought Guido to a split decision just over a year ago, so he's been out for a while, but he always seemed to be in good shape. He's one of those just super fit African guys. He's just, ridiculously in shape. And I imagine he keeps himself that way throughout the year. Just get that kind of vibe about Ajagba, but I could be wrong. This battle between these two big African dudes, I don't know. This could be a very, very fun fight while it lasts. Both of them looking for a chance at
couple
a
of
title
brothers.
here. What's that?
Couple of brothers.
Couple of brothers. Yep, couple of brothers. Both of them looking for a chance to get really into the title picture here. But Justin, Ajagba's pretty straightforward, jab right hand kind of guy, pretty static. Bakole more of a guy that goes in there and wings it. I think the styles might blend really well on this one. I'm not committed to a winner, but I am committed to the idea that I think this is going to be a fun fight.
Oh, Bacole's going to knock him out. I think Bacole's going to stop him. I think they took the money with the Parker fight, knowing that it didn't really matter, that he was still getting in training and still fighting this one. I don't think that's going to affect him at all for Ajagba. Like you said, Ajagba is like a totem pole. He doesn't do it. I mean, I can't see this fight going the distance. I can't see it going 10 or 12. I can't see it going long. I think Bakole, after we saw what he did versus Anderson, and Anderson is better than Ajagba, I think Bakole is going to come out here, and I think he's going to stop Ajagba probably like 5 or 6 rounds. And at least Bakole, I think Bakole is going to win. Definitely, I don't think he's going to stop him. Ajagba, it's been coming for him for a while. He's already lost. Who did he lose? He lost to the Cuban guy, didn't he? The Flash. Didn't he lose to that guy? Ajagba, he lost shit. I think he lost to somebody, but I think Bakole is going to stop him probably 5 or 6 rounds.
Yeah, he lost to Frank Sanchez.
That's what he lost. So yeah, but Ajagba, they built him up as a puncher, but he's not really a puncher. So that kind of takes away the weapon they all said he had, and he's not that great of a boxer. Bakole has shown. I mean, we don't know how big Bakole will be. You can't, like I said, you can't take nothing from the Parker fight. I don't think he'll be as big as he was for Parker. I think they got him right back into camp probably a few days after that Parker loss, and then Ajagba. This is a kind of a fight.
They pulled him out of the Gucci. They pulled him out of the Gucci store, and then they fucking got him back in camp. Remember that he was fighting the Gucci with his. He looks in good nick. He looks in good nick from the. Well, I say good nick, but he looks in good nick for Bacoli. He looks like he's got into fighting condition for this fight for sure. I just saw some clips floating around on social, so you got to think a fit Bacoli would fucking have the edge on the Jagba, but I don't know, like going up and down the weight, like has its long term effects as well. Even though you don't have to make weight as heavyweight, like still if you're fucking coming in, what fucking weight was he for? He was fucking Big John territory, wasn't he?
305,
Like,
I think it was.
Yeah, it
305.
was over 300.
big guy.
Yeah, I don't. We'll see what kind of shape he comes in. He's going to have to be in better shape than he was against Parker to beat Ajagba. But I just think if he has a decent camp after hearing I don't know. Maybe he's right. Yeah, Des, do you think with a decent camp that Bacoli should have this?
Well, it's a funny one that you mentioned the camp, because by the letter of the law, he can't spar for 30 days after the Parker fight. So he can't spar for 30 days after. He can't spar for 30 days after that fight, and you'd assume he'd taper his sparring down 2 weeks before the fight, so he hadn't a lot of chance to do any sparring if they've been following the letter of the law. And he had 310 pounds he'd come in against Joe Parker. So, I mean, he's a big guy, but 310 is a bit big. So you'd have to assume his best performance was against Jared Anderson, where he came in at 285. So he's still got a couple of stone to lose. It's only a couple of months ago he was getting topped in a couple of rounds by Parker. So on a normal day, everything being equal, I'd expect Bacoli to win this one. But I've just told you 3 or 4 reasons why this could be a funny one for Bacoli. Is he fit enough to winkle his way through it? Yeah, possibly. Is he big enough to maraud his way through it and stop FA? Yeah, I think so. But we just don't know until he turns up. What's his weight going to be? Has his training gone? And what's his head like? Only 2 months ago, he was getting done. So it's a quick turnaround, this, and we'll have to see on the night. But you won't know the full story until they're on the scales.
See, I don't think the Parker was like people said he got chinned and then I don't think the Parker was a real full-on knockout. I think it was just he was a fat asshole and he just didn't have nothing left, and I don't think it was that Parker just destroyed him. So I don't take that into a factor in him.
Or like you saved the day,
Yeah.
you took some shots. Nobody.
Yeah, because he got up and he was bopping around the ring. He didn't really care. It's like in Ajagba, I think the real Ajagba is the guy that we saw get just, he got knocked down like 4 times versus that Georgian guy that Freddie Roach was training or something. So that's the real Ajagba. So Bacoli should walk right through him regardless if he shows up at 400 pounds.
Yeah, when he Kasabutsky got that DQ.
Yeah, so he should show, even if he showed up at 400 pounds, he should have enough to beat Ajagba.
Yeah, you forget about that because, just looking at it, all you see is DQ win, and you forget about that. But he was getting messed up to the body in that fight, wasn't he? And, Kasabutsky, the ref thought he went low one too many times. But, yeah, I forgot about that one.
It was Kasabutsky, and then it was the other – Kasabutsky was like the Uzbek guy, or Kazakhstan. Then it was another guy he fought from Georgia that I keep forgetting. What's the guy that wears all the denim – the trainer that wears like the jean jacket.
Joe Goosen.
Yeah, that was his guy. The Georgian guy was Goosen's guy, and he knocked Ajagba down like 4 times. So yeah, I just think Ajagba it's coming. This is probably his last fight we'll see as far as him. I wouldn't say a highlight, but I think Bacoli should just walk right through him.
Let's see here. Yeah, we'll see. I'm interested in that one. I think that, again, I had a hard time picking, and Des laid out some reasons why maybe I wasn't wrong. So we'll see. Moving up the card one, we got Badu Jack against Milkalian, or Michael Jean. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Honestly, I haven't seen this guy fight yet. The WBC title at cruiserweight is on the line. Badu Jack was supposed to fight Rozicki. They changed this one, I think, within about a month of the event, so it shouldn't be too terrible. I don't know. Jack just seems to fight once every year, 18 months or so, Des, and he wins some. He draws some, but we see him again. I don't know what to say about this fight. He ends up in some really good fights at times, and then some absolute just like shrug, didn't matter too. It's hot and cold guy, 100%.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Badou Jack. I've always enjoyed his fights. I've followed his career from the start. I love the journey he made from going over from Sweden over to the West Coast and then relocating. And I think Badou Jack's one of them interesting characters. I don't think he's ever fought anyone, or he's only fought a handful of people with a losing record. And in the early days, that's very rare. So I think he's got about 3 or 4 opponents in his whole career that had losing records. Badou's come up the hard way, and he was never given anything close. He was always given the draw, or he lost a split. But I think at the moment, Badou's got some really good friends out in that particular part of the world. I think he's cemented relations. He's got himself a WBC title, and I think he's got one foot in retirement, and he's picking up a few quid. And it's the benefits of having relationships with the people behind the scenes.
He hasn't fought since February of 2023. Actually, it's over 2 years, Des.
It's when he won the title against Makabu, isn't it? It was a vacant belt, and he beat Makabu, or he might have beat Makabu. Might have been the champion, but his last fight was winning the belt. But I don't think he's under any pressure to defend. I don't think he's under any pressure to get out. And I think at cruiserweight, he's not under any pressure to keep the weight down either. I think he's got one foot in retirement, and I think he's got a really good relationship and a good thing going. So, and the guys they're serving up to him, I've never heard of, which tells its own story. So I assume Badou Jack's going to be quite slow, quite laborious, quite ponderous, and he'll probably eke out a 12-round decision. And only Badou Jack will know when the time's up. And that'd be when someone like a young J.O. Pataya comes along that no one's aware of, and he lights Badou up, or it'd be when Badou has a really hard night and he's pissing blood for 2 days, and he says, "You know what? I don't need this anymore." But until then, I think we're going to see a bit of Badou Jack sporadically every 8 to 12 months, and it's going to be hand-picked opponents, and I think he's going to be enjoying life as a WBC champion out in that part of the world.
All right. I don't know if either of you guys want to get in on this too. This is the one fight that I found reasonably uninteresting on the card.
Hell no.
All right.
10 at night. You must be fucking joking me.
Yeah. Not for me. I'm with you. So we'll move on. The other fight on the undercard here that's interesting is the rematch between Jaime Munguia and Bruno Sirachi. Munguia was just kind of standing in front of Sirachi, working his hands, definitely winning the fight. And then one big right hand, I believe it was, and that was the end of the night for the normally iron-chinned Jaime Munguia, who had been down against Canelo, but has been in some wars and really, might have been buzzed and hurt a few times, but has been relatively stood strong in there. And, he just found himself obliterated by a guy with only a handful of knockouts on a record with more than 20 victories. So, Justin, I'd have to think that Munguia wins the rematch here, but maybe I'm wrong. He might just be straight up damaged goods.
I mean, that had to be the biggest surprise we've had in a while. Not that Munguia lost as much as the fact that Huey lost too. Just because even then, he's another one of those guys that the announcers were like, didn't even know who he was. Nobody knew who he was. Even if you're the,
it was a stay busy fight. It was just,
even if you're the biggest no hardcore buy. If anybody come to me, unless you're his family member or you're from where his hometown in France is, nobody knew who the hell Bruno Sirachi was, whatever the hell you want, the sauce, whatever you want to call him. Nobody knew who he was. He landed a hell of a shot that he actually set up. If you go back to that fight, he set that shot up. It wasn't like a lucky, some people say the lucky. I don't think there is a lucky punch in boxing, but he actually set that punch up. He'd been working it for a little bit, and he just finally hit it. I mean, Munguia should have enough. But, who knows? Look at all the guys he's been with that can punch, and they really couldn't budge him. And then it took, but I think a lot more, like I said, that was just a punch that was set up. He didn't see it. And those are always the ones that get you, the ones you don't see. And he just didn't see that one coming. I don't think he expected it. Like you said, this was in his hometown. He had about 9,000 people in the ring with him. It was a hell of it was just a celebration fight. And those are the ones where you can lose the concentration and mess up. So I don't think I can see him. He should beat Sriracha. Good Lord. I mean, but you have to say this. If Munguia loses this one, he needs to give it up. It's over. If you lose 2 in a row to a guy who's not even rated the top 5 in France at his division, you might as well hang it, because that's it. I mean, where are you going to go from this? That means you're not beating anybody. You're not beating anyone if you can't beat this guy. And I'm not trying to put Sriracha down, but Sriracha doesn't. This is just where he's at right now. Munguia has had a long career, kind of a smoke and mirrors career, because they didn't really put him versus anybody until he got to Canelo. So we'll see. Like I said, I'm not really going to pay. I'm not paying a lot of attention to this fight.
He fought Bruno only like 3 months after he fought Canelo, and
yeah, that was
a rough fight. Yeah,
and that was a stupid decision on their part, because I think the reason they did it is because Munguia fights a lot, but also that was just get him back out there versus some random dude they knew they were going to destroy, and they made the bad call. But I don't think there's nobody in the world that would have called that. That was, on paper, that was the biggest upset of last year. By far the biggest upset we've had in a couple of years, probably, as far as random guys that nobody knows winning a fight.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the crazier upsets of the year that I remember, and it came crashing into that position in the very last few weeks of the year last year. So just for information, Ajagba, the underdog, paying about 3-1. Jack is the underdog against Michael Jean, paying just over even money. And Sriracha, Des, interesting enough, after a clean knockout victory in the first fight, he's paying 11-2 as the underdog in this one. It's interesting. Des, are you with us?
Yes, mate. I don't know. You cut out. Just I don't know if you called me. Is this Munguia we're talking about, Matty?
Yeah. It's the guy who beat him, he's paying 11-2 as the underdog in the rematch. That's a surprise.
Yeah, and for old guys like me and Rob, this is Peter Eubanks and Barry McGuigan. I fully expect Munguia to put it right. He's not. Sriracha is not a puncher. He's got no business beating someone like Munguia. He caught him out. It does happen in boxing. It does happen, and I think that's all it was. Munguia got caught out. I think he'll put it right and he'll put it to bed.
All right, very concise. So let's just move into the main event there. Canelo Alvarez, William Scull, another one where will these best laid plans just be thrown all to pieces by an undefeated underdog coming in and spoiling the possible fight between Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford that's being planned for September? I don't know. I feel like something this weekend has to come crashing down with all of these future plans that lay ahead. Scull, he's got a good reach. He steps in. He can land a pretty quick right hand. He's got a lot of the things that a younger fighter can have that can trouble an older fighter. And I do believe that Canelo is eventually going to catch his timing and take over the fight. But I have this hunch that maybe it's too late in the fight when he figures it out. So unless he gets his opponent on the canvas, whether just to score an extra point or to stop the fight, I don't know. I think this one could be close down the stretch. I got a feeling, Rob. I got a feeling.
Rob said he'll be back in a little bit.
Oh, well, you go ahead. He just wrote he'll be back in a minute. I know you have been banging this skull drum for a few weeks now that it's going to be a closer fight. And I know I've made this joke already, but Canelo is going to skull fuck the shit out of him. It is going to be, there's no way that Canelo is going to make another b-ball mistake and that they
picked the wrong guy for his first fight with the Saudis. There's just I cannot see them see them putting a live body in there.
There wasn't a lot of choice because they wanted Canelo against Crawford to be for undisputed, so they had to go with the guy who took the belt that they forced.
I know, but it's still, I don't see any way in the world that Skull can win this fight or even make it. He might make it a little bit hard for Canelo, but unless Canelo, I guess you're right about that. Unless Canelo just drops right off the face of the earth, there's no way that William Scull can have enough to beat him. But I mean, I honestly, in the world, the Saudi world and the Canelo world, if you're correct and Skull just makes it a really good fight, actually that's not a loss, but it's almost a loss. If William Scull makes Canelo look bad and it is a dog fight, does it hurt the Crawford fight? I don't think it kills it, but it doesn't help it. I mean, how are you supposed to sell this if Canelo looks like he's completely washed versus a William Scull? That's either could happen two ways. It's not going to help the fight sell, or it's going to help it sell better because you think everybody's going to be going against him. I think Crawford's going to win. It could help the betting part of it, but I don't see. I went back and watched some Skull fights on. And I don't, like you said, he does have some ability. He is a Cuban guy living in Germany. I don't see it. I don't see where Canelo should lose, but you're right. Who knows? They didn't handpick him, but I don't know where Skull's going to win. He's not going to knock Canelo out. He's not going to hurt Canelo, so he's going to have to completely win 10 rounds of this fight to win a decision, but he could make it awkward. I think that's the best he can hope for, is that he makes it awkward.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Canelo's getting older. He's never been fleet of foot. It's one of those fights where a young athletic guy with the Cuban schooling, if he can get behind his jab, use some speed, use his feet a little bit, could give the older guy problems. But that said, despite his slow feet, Canelo's always been exceptional at cutting off the ring.
You reminded me of my old uncle, Matty. His name was Peter Murphy, and he was a gambler, and he always saw an upset. He always went for the upset, and I think he goes for like 40, 50 bets. They all lose, and the one comes in. I told you.
The thing is, we've been on the pod with Maddie for a long, long time, and we never get the I told you. We just got, I lost that parlay. Oh.
I don't think that this can happen, Matty. I think Skull's the wrong guy to look to for that. I heard sparring stories, not the stuff that the dad was talking about, but I heard sparring stories about Conor, and I think the word was that Skull's pretty routine, and there's not a lot that he's going to show Canelo that Canelo hasn't seen before. I expect Canelo to really work him over, get a good tick over, and line himself up for the Bud fight. This is not gonna be a spanner in the works, I promise you.
So do you think it's more likely that Canelo gets his first stoppage in a good handful of years?
No, not necessarily that either, mate. I think Canelo goes through the routine. I think he works on things that he wants to put into practice against Bud. I think he blows a lot of cobwebs out. Maybe goes for looking for the stoppage. I don't know. We'll know a bit more on the night. It depends in how stubborn Skull wants to be. But I just don't think they've brought Skull in to be the kid that puts the spanner in the works. This isn't a who was the German kid that fought Oscar before Bernard Hopkins? What was his name? This isn't a Sturm situation. This isn't a Sturm situation. Skull's not a world-class operator and an absolute pain in the ass at middleweight. This is not that type of kid. Skull's going to be there to get lit up. He'll get well beat. And I think Canelo will just be in first gear, second gear, third gear. He'll go through the whole routine, the whole card. And I think the safe money will be Canelo to win on unanimous decision.
Canelo to win a unanimous decision, he thinks. I'm just curious here because, interestingly enough, really nobody spoke much for the for the whatchamacallit, the underdog. So now fucking DraftKings won't work for me for whatever reason. But it's almost interesting. Aside from the Badu Jack fight, which is close to even money fight, it almost sounds like you guys would just pile your money into all the underdogs in these fights. You file them on all the favorites. You guys really didn't seem to bite on anything I had for you, except maybe a little bit that Garcia's a bit of an unpredictable quantity, and that leads
you got to go method of victory. I think if you got to go method of victory if you're looking for value. I had myself yesterday. I had a bit of a treble on stoppage wins for Yard, McKenna, and Eubank. So I got the fucking method of victory wrong and the winner right. I lost my bet, but you're kind of like, in order for it to make sense and make a few quid at the back, you got to go method of victory on those ones. In terms of Scull versus Canelo, again, we're talking about tonight about that Eubank Benn fight, and it's like, make the reference that it's fucking everything wrong and everything right about the sport. And in a lot of ways, Canelo's same thing. Like, it's a kind of like a microcosm of everything that's right and everything that's wrong about the sport. He came to the sport, turned over pro at 15, came in very early days on the Floyd undercards when he was like 147 to 154. He was struggling to knock out Matthew Hatton. And then somewhere along the line, the Kirkland fight, he started turning everybody's lights out. It was proven then down the line that he was a drug cheat. He got away with it because he's the money man. But having said that, like, fucking turned over at 15. He's on his like 65th fight now. He's only lost twice. So you've got Floyd beat him, you got Bivol beat him. I think Golovkin beat him in the first fight for sure. And didn't get the result. I don't think there's any way you get 7 rounds for Canelo, or even 6 in the first fight. But having said that, like, he has been terrific, Canelo, on his day. He's fought pretty much everybody. There was talks early in his career that he was like ducking certain fighters, but he fought like Austin Trout at 54, James Kirkland at 54, Lara at 54. He's fought Floyd when he weight drained himself. He cleaned out he fought Golovkin eventually. He ducked, he would have said he maybe ducked fucking Sergio Martinez, and he ducked Golovkin early but as well, we talk about again fucking why he's everything wrong and right about the sport. People at the time thought he's never a fucking 160 pounder. And since then, he's been able to go up to 68, dominate, up to 75, win a version of a title, up to 75 to fight against Bivol, only get beaten on points. So there's question marks about him. He's a fucking massive draw. He's a massive Mexican star. He's fucking brilliant on his day. He's given us some brilliant victories that we've really fucking reveled in and enjoyed here on the pod, especially none more so maybe than the Billy Joe Saunders win. He's fought fucking everybody from basically 54 to 68 along his way. And I don't begrudge him the retirement tour. I don't begrudge him not fighting David Benavidez, as hardcore as we demand these fights. But we also have to be understanding that Canelo is the man in boxing still until he retires. He's the biggest draw. Fury and AJ are gone, basically. Canelo, throughout that whole era, was still having fights on Cinco de Mayo and the September Mexican Independence Day. He has commanded the biggest fucking purses because he's the biggest draw on the sport. Evil Canelo that's learned English, motherfucker. I love him. Like, I just think we have seen the best of him. Having said all that, I don't think Big Bad Billy Scull is the man to expose him. He's got a very low knockout rate. Is he getting a decision against Canelo even if he fucking takes 7 rounds? I don't know. I think this fight serves a purpose in that potentially it could show signs of rustiness with Canelo, and everybody would then get salivating for Crawford can do this. Like, Crawford can go from 54 to 68, and this is his time. Like, I hate that fight. I have to say, I have to remain consistent. If I hated Ben Eubank, I have to hate this for the same reasons. Bud Crawford.
Yeah, but both of them are fucking substandard at the end of the day. We're talking about exceptional.
I don't
fighters.
care.
This is a great fighter going to really great heights.
It's the weight, though. It's the weight. Canelo has been up at that weight for the bones of 10 years. Bud Crawford, for me, struggled in his first outing at 54, where I've never seen him basically struggle before. Flashes of fights against Benavides, Kavalauskas, maybe Gamboa, who'd never been beaten, I don't think, at that stage, even though he'd been
He
inactive.
had not been. He took Crawford took his
They,
O.
they showed slight moments of vulnerability, or they showed that Crawford could have slight moments of vulnerability, but almost every time, virtually on cue, Crawford then responded. You know, that way it was like you're upsetting him, you're annoying him almost by exposing him for 30 seconds, by catching him with a shot or wobbling him or having success against him. It's just like he bites down and he drives through it. Like, but this is Madrimov was the first night I thought he looked uncomfortable for the whole fight, and he was figuring Madrimov out. I still think he was the rightful winner, and Madrimov maybe has shown the effects of a full 12 rounds of Bud Crawford since but I still think size was a big factor in that. Like, I think you can't get away from the fact that maybe 147 is Crawford's natural best weight. He had to wait a long time at 47 to get his big payday, but I think 47 was the weight he was due to grow into after dominating at 35 and 40. And I think 54 is too big a step for him. 68 has to be too big a step for him. But are you getting Canelo at the precisely right time? At the precisely right time, and plus they have the benefits of the snack program, etc., as well, playing into it. But I think this fight serves the purpose that maybe you might think Canelo looks a little bit rusty, and this is the time for Bud to take him out. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, they're both older fighters. That's the tough thing about it, is it's not like it's an incredibly young up and comer. It's a guy who took a long time to get his moment, going in against a guy who was given the spotlight early, and all the
hold on,
advantages early
there's a
too.
scouser annoyed at me there in the chat. I don't know, I've been upsetting the scousers lately. I don't know if this guy. This guy's a Liverpudlian. I'm not trying to say Canelo or Crawford is razor sharp because of his activity. I'm saying that I think this fight might serve a purpose, that you might see signs that Canelo is not what he was, and then that in turn builds the anticipation for a showdown with Bud. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to say Bud is super sharp either. But anyway, enjoy your title win, man. Don't be worried about what I'm saying. I'm mute. Oh, what's going on?
Free, man.
He's changing all his underdog bets.
What?
The guy, I don't know.
The stream free or something?
So is that the whole undercard then? I think he covered why he's doing whatever he's doing. I think he covered everything. Bruno Suraj. Des, you got something you want to talk about then? Because he just said talk about
Maddie's
something.
gone. Maddie's gone, is he? Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
dude. I got kicked out as well there. I don't know what was happening.
Everybody got kicked out. I think, is Des out?
No, I'm here, mate. I've just come back in.
Yeah. I guess we've already covered the fight itself. I don't know if Matt's right, though. We'll never hear the end of it, but there's no way Skull's doing shit. I mean, come on. He's not going to do anything, but we think. Hell, I don't know. I think we've covered that whole thing. I don't know when he'll be back, but
Chuck was wanting to come on. Of course he can come on, for fuck's sake. Of course he can, man. Fuck's sake, in true fucking Chuck Woo fashion. He turns up late. Maddie, throw Chuck Woo the link there. We get his thoughts on Ben Eubank, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, Matt said he unmuted himself and he can't get back in because he can't leave because he's the one presenting it, so he's just out.
Incredible.
All right, so we've
time to join on a different
Canelo
device and let himself in.
Yeah. I mean, we've covered everything I could think of. I don't know what else to cover.
What's going on, says Chuck Woo. Well, fucking, if you can figure it out, we'll let you know. You can tell us. We don't know. Maddie has been thrown off the pod by the powers that be. Could have been due to irregular betting patterns.
I guess if you are running, I guess he's right. I guess if you are running it, you can't just like reload it because that would just kick everything out. No, I don't know.
Well, that might be the natural end to this week's pod, then, mightn't it?
I think we'll just cut loose and let it there, guys. I'd say thanks everyone for joining us. This has been episode fucking
great idea, Rob, on adding myself to the call.
There you go. Oh fuck, he's back. Jason Voorhees here. Fuck's sake. Sorry, man. Go ahead, dude.
No, yeah, and hold on, I gotta get these my mic undone here. There's gonna be a little bit of an echo and crap. So but let's just take I don't know how the hell I'm going to do this. I'll just use the computer. Boom. Yeah, I don't know what the hell. My computer went dead on me, and as the presenter, that throws everything in a loop. Thank you for whatever the hell was going on there. I was trying to have a little deeper conversation about Canelo, but I guess that's kind of it. Sorry, Chuck Woo. Too late, dude. It's it's close to fucking 11 o'clock over there, man. But it's, I don't know. I just get the feeling that this week something very bizarre is going to happen in one of these fights, especially with the number of combustible personalities you have going into the ring. And get ready for something. Like, I have a feeling that if you were to bet the favorites in all the fights this weekend, you're going to lose your parlay. And how that breaks down, in what way, I don't know. But something weird's going to happen. You can't put this much stuff with so much future on the line and have everything work out well.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking this sport. Just when we fucking, do you know what I mean? Just when we think everything's predictable, dull, boring, it's on its way out. It'll produce a moment, so you wouldn't rule it out. But I think the way this is lined up, it has to be, this is fucking Turkey's vision is to have Canelo fight Crawford, like, and give these big fighters what they want, wave big bags of money in front of them to make these fights happen when the fighters want them. I can't see a bump in the road on the Saudi card. In the other one, you don't know, because you got so many characters in there that are widely unpredictable themselves. Rolly Romero, Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, and Ryan Garcia. Who the fuck knows what either of these are going to do? Like, do you know that way? And maybe the guys, the opponents are licking their chops, thinking that they have fucking all they have to do is keep their head down, say nothing, and turn up on the night and put in a performance, and they might open it all up again. But I'd be going method of victory now. If we're talking betting terms, I'd be going Haney points, Garcia knockout, and Lopez knockout, and Canelo points win.
Yeah, that sounds right. But if you go by Matt's prediction, it's going to be Crawford versus Skull and Romero versus Ramirez as the co-main.
Crawford versus Skull, for fuck's sake.
What a bunch of bullshit that would be.
Revenge for Gamboa.
Donnie already has the room out in Vegas. What the hell? I'm telling you, best laid plans go to waste.
We all know what that means. We all know where that's going. Fuck's sake.
Another adventure in Vegas with Donnie. Here we go again. But anyhow, yeah, this has been a good conversation. Sorry about the tech issues there. My laptop kind of went dead on me. I think my battery's going poo on me. Had it for a while. And
hand over your laptop.
Yeah, kicked me out of the show. Yeah, so that kind of kicked me out of the show, but I'm the presenter, so I don't think anything can happen if I'm not in here or somebody with those capabilities like Steve or Ames. So that's what happened there. I apologize to everybody for the text up at the end, but I would like to thank Daniel DeRossi and David Palmer, who just threw in a super chat, $9.99. Says, put
Thanks
this
very
towards New Tech lads. Love the pods. Thanks as always. Yeah, appreciate you. Sorry about that one. Well, maybe Steve will do the wonder of editing that one out. I'll pass him a message and see if he can't clean it up slightly. But anyhow, it's been a really good chat, and I would like to thank Steve for joining us this week. That was a pleasant surprise, as well as Justin, Dez, and Rob Kelly himself. And there's 2 guys in here named Matt. What a crazy thing. But anyways, I have been your host, Matt D. John Arnold. We'll be back with you folks a week from today to review all of this stuff and look ahead to the coming weeks of boxing. And until then, everyone take care of yourselves, and we will see you next week.
We'll never forget.
I think that's good happening.
Go to and move! We want to be honest, yeah?
Crying like a little bitch. I've never met a fucking Sri that can fight me.
I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
You're a fucking bum, you're a fucking asshole.
Rumpo fucking Steltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7-year ain't. 7-year ain't. I will fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love boxing sounds, as simple as that.